This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome you guys back to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I take the time out to remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Very appreciated, very helpful. I'll see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And I wanted to start off today, because, I mean, there's a couple of different topics we could start off with in our discussions with. But I want to start off today talking about how everyone's playing for second place in the NFL at this point. Again, there's a lot of season left. Still got the whole playoffs, you still got everything. You got to see if they get through the season, which we'll talk about in a second with some new COVID-related stuff popping up, which I mean we knew was going to happen, and just how soon it was going to happen, and I guess it made it, and they made it 3 weeks, so I mean, not too bad. But yeah, everybody's playing for second place at this point in time. If the Chiefs stay healthy, if Mahomes is healthy, if Tyreek Hill is healthy, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if their offense stays relatively healthy, like everyone in the NFL is playing for second place. Because in many people's minds, even after yesterday, 2 days ago when you guys hear this, and even after what we saw, and even after this weekend and different things, many people still argue that the Ravens may very well be the second best team in the NFL period, not even just the AFC, like the NFL period. Now, I mean, you could argue that obviously they're not there's I think 7 3-0 teams. So again, you can make the argument around them. Different things, but again, best team does not necessarily mean best record. Like I said, as I said last season, like the Packers record was 13-3, but so far this team has looked better than that team. Granted, I don't know if they're going to finish 13-3, but like there were other teams that had worse records than 13-3 that I thought were better than the Packers. And again, obviously they didn't win the Super Bowl, so there is that. But again, the best record does not necessarily, or a better record does not necessarily mean a better team. It just depends on who you played in those first couple weeks. But that's not the point. And the point is that when clicking on all cylinders, which the Chiefs were last night, they are better than everyone else. And I think, like I said, that was because this game was hyped up to be like, this is gonna be one of the it was promoted as one of the best Monday Night Football matchups in recent memory. Like, obviously, you have the last 2 MVP winners. They're both under 25. This could be the future of the NFL. Blah, blah, blah. And within about a quarter and a half, maybe, you could say, it was pretty clear that the Chiefs and Ravens should not have been on the same field. At least that night. Again, we'll see what happens if they play again. But it was clear that there was a gap in the two teams. Like I said, the Chiefs came out early and often scored. They were up 27-10 at halftime. Mahomes had, I think, 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown by the end of the first half. Just showing off and showing out. I mean, they're just basically doing whatever he wants out there. I mean, as I've been saying on this podcast, he's the best quarterback in the league. I'm not going to say by far, but I mean, the gap between him, like the Russell Wilsons of the world, isn't small. It's not like massive, but it's not like that small either. Like, again, it's clear that when he's at his best, and that's kind of how I view these guys, is when he's at his best, he's better than everyone. I mean, maybe may eventually go down as one of the best quarterbacks ever. Already may be one of the best quarterback talents we've seen at the position, at least in terms of what my eyes have seen. Granted, I didn't see Dan Marino. I've just seen highlights and things like that. Didn't see like Prime Joe Montana or like John Elway or the other guys that may potentially hold that title when it comes to like just talent at the position. Obviously, again, Tom Brady's the most accomplished, so there is that, and obviously that does factor in. But when you just look at the things that Mahomes can do compared to the things that Tom Brady can do, I mean, no disrespect to Tom Brady, but it's kind of night and day. So yeah, and also, like I said, up until this point, it had been Aaron Rodgers, things he could do on the move, the throws he could make, the accuracy he had, all those things. I was like, this is the most talented guy I've ever seen. Granted, most talent does not mean best, and I want to preface this conversation by saying that the most talented does not mean the best player, especially when you're talking about all time. But I mean, at this point, there's no reason to believe that Mahomes may not. Well, yeah, there's no reason to believe that he may not be the best or the most talented person to ever play the quarterback position. Finished the game, 31 of 42, 385 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, wasn't sacked. Just like I said, it's just like he just does things that other people don't do. And again, I want to give some credit to Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy because it wasn't just Pat Mahomes out there doing everything. But again, the throw that he had on the McCole Hardman touchdown on double move, like most quarterbacks wouldn't drift backwards and left in the pocket to buy themselves enough time to let McCole Hardman work down the field because they know they have the arm strength to, again, with just like no hitch, just stop your feet, plant and throw, and that's what he was able to do. Just because, and again, like no one would teach you like, hey, in this route, drift away from the throw to then set yourself up to throw. But that's what he does, and that's why some of the times you see from his lineman can be a little difficult to block for him because there are times where he'll just back up an immense amount just because same thing he did in that big play in the Super Bowl to Tyreek Hill on that Wasp play, I believe, where he just kind of backs up, and then just like because he has arm strength, he knows he can just throw it down there. And like I said, that's what he did, and that's what he's done on various occasions. Like I said, most quarterbacks can't do that. Most quarterbacks can't do unconventional things and be as successful as Patrick Mahomes is. But because he's Patrick Mahomes, he can do those kind of things. Like I said, I don't want to just make this the Patrick Mahomes segment. Obviously, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, we're showcasing their skill sets on full display. Eric Bieniemy, I don't want to say there's no chance, but I would be shocked if he isn't a head coach this time next year. He should have been a head coach this offseason, in my personal opinion, just because, again, when you're not the main architect, because it is still Andy Reid's offense, but when he has a lot of input and a lot of say on what is probably the best offense in the league when, like, healthy, because obviously Mahomes was hurt and like Tyreek Hill was hurt. Like they dealt with some things last year, and obviously the Ravens had a great season. But again, when everything's clicking, they're the best offense in football, and obviously now they have a more explosive running back than they did last year, even with like the Damian Williams, who was good, but again, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it might be just as good, if not better, especially by the end of the season because he's only 3 games into his rookie year. But yeah, when you're the architect of that kind of offense, and you've helped groom and help coach Mahomes and help like develop some of these plays and help make some of these decisions and different things like that. Like I said, there's no reason why you shouldn't be a head coach, especially in a league where offense is as important and as emphasized as it is now. Again, the game, especially with all the rules and different things, is designed to score points. So again, if you have a coach of a team that continues to score points at a record pace, not a record pace, obviously, but like at an easy rate. Because like I said, that's the funny thing about watching good football teams is that it makes you like if you were like a fan of a bad team, like obviously like I said, I'm an Eagles fan. We've been struggling, especially on offense. But like if you're like a Giants fan, a Jets fan, like teams like that, when your team is bad, it feels like you're watching a different sport, especially on the offensive end. Like I said, the ease in which the Chiefs can move the ball down the field, the ease in which they can scheme guys open, the ease in which they can like dial up certain plays, like that screen pass, like the underhand shovel pass they did to the fullback on near the goal line. It's just like little things like that. The tackle eligible pass that they had for Tarek Fisher for the last touchdown. Like little things like that, that they do. And it's just like, it's not that complicated when you think about it. It's not like underneath screen is not that complicated. A tackle eligible pass is not that complicated. We've seen things like that before. But then they just make it look so easy. And I said that's the thing when you watch good teams, even good offense and good defense. Like, and again, it doesn't just go for football. It's in all sports. Like when you see great pitching, they just make the game look so easy. When you see a great lineup, it makes the game look so easy. When you see a great player or a great shooter, they just make the game look so easy. And that's what the Chiefs do. They just make the game look so easy that you're just like, am I even watching the same sport when I watch other teams? Because it doesn't feel like it. Like I said, if you watched, and again, if you watch the Cowboys Seahawks, you're like, oh, okay, this looks somewhat similar. But again, if you watch like the Eagles Bengals game, which I wouldn't have advised you to do, but if you did, then you're just like, this is like, it doesn't look like I'm watching the same sport. It doesn't. And obviously we know it is, like everybody looks the same, like they all got helmets and pads and the same rules and different things, but just like the things that you're seeing on the field just don't seem as easy. They don't seem as, again, not simple, because again, football isn't a simple game, but just like the Chiefs do things that it's just like, and make it look so easy. And maybe that's Mahomes, maybe that's Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, whoever you want to credit to for that, the receivers, the running backs, the offensive line, whoever you credit to for that, they make it look so easy. And just like I said, just impressive. And again, I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated. I'm not saying they're going to win every game. They're going to do the 2007 Patriots, do them one better and actually win the Super Bowl while being undefeated. I don't think that's going to happen. Like, they'll lose a game eventually, I would think. Obviously, we'll see if that pans out. But again, at this point, it's hard to say anyone else besides them is the best team in the league. It's hard to see anyone else beating them on a big stage, because that's going to require you to get Patrick Mahomes to play bad for 4 quarters. Even if he plays bad for 3.5, like he kind of did in the Super Bowl, once he gets things going, as long as there's still time on the clock, you have the Chiefs feel like they have a chance to win. As long as, again, the game's not out of hand, which it really never is when he's at quarterback. I don't know the stat offhand, but I don't know what the biggest loss of his career is. Like, I don't think they've ever lost by 14, 21 points, anything like that since he's been a starter. Obviously, they've lost games, but very rarely are they getting smoked or they're getting blown out. And like I said, just because the things Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense can do to keep pace with other teams. And speaking of keeping pace, the Ravens had trouble keeping pace with them. And again, I'm not going to use it as a referendum on like Lamar Jackson and like, oh, his style of play doesn't work, and blah, blah, blah. But I am going to use it as a referendum on the coaching staff, because it's clear that whenever if they get off to a good start, like, they're good. Like, then that means they can run the ball, they can do their regular offense, all those kind of things. But once they get behind, it seems like for whatever reason, they feel like they can abandon who they are, their identity. And like I said, that is running the ball. Like, in this game, obviously they were losing, but they end up running the ball 21 times. But for a Ravens team, that's not a whole lot. They run more than that, generally speaking. Like, let me look up their last game. When they beat the Texans. Now, obviously, again, they won by 17. But they ran the ball 37 times that game. And obviously, you run more when you're winning and things like that. But even against the Browns week 1, they ran the ball 30 times. Like I said, running the ball in the low 20s, that's not them. That's not their team. That's not who they... Well, take that back. They ran it... No, that's the Chiefs. They ran it, like I said, 21 times. That's not the Ravens. That's not who they are. It's not their offensive identity. And like I said, as I think it was pointed out, I think it was on one of the talk shows I was watching earlier today on ESPN, like, they pointed out, like, the Rams. Like, they were down 28-3 to the Bills, but they still ran their same offense, because that's who they are. There's no reason for you to get away from that, even if you're losing. Like I said, that's the problem when you see with so many teams. They, like, all right, once we get down a score or 2 scores, they abandon what works for them, and they just go get all pass happy. And I'm like, unless you're the Chiefs, like, that's not going to work for you. Like I said, the Ravens don't have the consistency at the receiver position at this point in time. Because again, it's not like every pass that Lamar was throwing was off. Obviously, he didn't have his greatest day, but he wasn't helped out by the receivers at all. I know, like, they dropped a couple touchdowns. And like I said, it's not a great group. Like, no receiver had more than 2 receptions. no receiver more than 2 receptions. Mark Andrews had 3, and like I said, that was on 8 targets. Excuse me, was on 8 targets, and then the Dobbins led the team with 4 receptions. And so, like I said, they were trying to do different things to the passing game, but they weren't able to do them, whether it was through drops or inaccuracy, whatever it is. Like I said, it's just one of those situations where the Ravens they've been shown how to be beat. Like the Chiefs haven't really, there's not really a specific if you do this to them or you do that to them, defensively you'll be able to slow them down. But the recipe to beat the Ravens over the last 2 years, or especially since Lamar has taken over, is that if you can get them down early, you can usually beat them because they'll just abandon the run. Generally speaking, obviously they still run the ball and things like that, but they'll try to become a little bit more pass happy, and that's especially when they don't really have a true number one receiver. The best receiver is probably their tight end, and Mark Andrews, and he's a very good tight end. But like I said, they just don't have the threats consistently on the outside. Obviously, Marquise Brown could be a good receiver eventually. He obviously has the speed, but he hasn't shown enough consistency as a receiver to showcase that he's that true number one guy just yet. Again, I think he could be, but he hasn't shown it yet. Like I said, that's not their bread and butter. That's not who they are as a team and as an offense. Like I said, once they got down, it was like I said, they abandoned who they are. They abandoned the run, and like I said, they struggled because of that. That Lamar Jackson had 97 passing yards on 28 attempts. Like, that's not great. Obviously, again, like I said, there were some drops in there, so it wasn't all on him. But again, you go 4 quarters, throw the ball almost 30 times and have 100 yards passing in a game. That's not good no matter who you are, and especially not good if you're an MVP. So, like I said, I understood some of the conversation around Lamar today, and again, is this a referendum on him or his style of play or anything like that? And I wouldn't go that far, because again, it's shown to be successful to a certain degree in the NFL. Obviously, he hasn't won a playoff game and things like that, blah, blah, blah. But again, there's more to winning a playoff game than just the play of the quarterback. But at the same time, again, this is just another example of how you can beat the Ravens. Like I said, you find a way to get them down early, or you stop that run or whatever, and force them to become a passing offense, and that's not what they want to do. And that's not what works. And again, you can see until they get a proven number one consistent receiver on the outside, this is how it's going to look against the better teams. So, like I said, it's unfortunate. I think he's now 0-3 against the Chiefs in his career. Well, I forget if the first game in 2018 where Pat Mahomes had no look. I forget if he was starting at that point or not. But I believe he will. But as long as, more of the stories, they're 0-3 against the Ravens their last 3, in the last 0-3 against the Chiefs in the last 3 years. I don't know if Lamar Jackson started all those games, but he at least started the last 2. So it's just something they have to work on. It's just that, again, don't be so afraid when you get down to be who you are. Like I said, go with what got you there, and go with what makes you successful. And that's the running game. That's using Lamar as a runner. And that's, again, mixing play-action passes and things like that. Don't just try to be a straight passing team. That's not who you are. Again, maybe eventually that could be who you become, but as of right now, that's not their identity. That's not who they are. Like I said, don't be afraid to don't be afraid to stick to that, even if you go down early. Like I said, it seems to be the recipe for them. As they get down, and like I said, they haven't figured out how to play from behind yet. They can play with a lead with the best of them. If they get up, and especially if they get up early, they're going to pile it on you quickly, because that means they can run their whole offense. But again, once they get down, they become a little bit more hesitant to run the ball as heavily as they would like. And like I said, you see these things where the passing game inconsistencies and maybe some of Lamar's inaccuracies, different things like that, kind of rear their ugly head. And we have a result like we did on Monday where they lost by 14. And it wasn't even that close, honestly. Like I said, it felt like it was a 30-point blowout, but obviously, again, they only gave up 14. Also, just another thing, obviously the Ravens, they're a blitz-heavy team, but as has been shown over the last couple of years, that's not how you beat Mahomes. You need to find a way to get to him with 4, because if you blitz, if he sees it, knows who to throw it to, then it's not going to go well for you. Plus, if you blitz and don't get home, and he's able to escape, as you saw with the fake jump pass that he had on Marlon Humphrey, where they blitzed a couple guys. I think they only rushed 4, but it was kind of not unorthodox, but a quote unquote tricky kind of blitz. And he read it, and then again they played man behind, and no one was around to track him down after he was able to escape the pocket. So that's the thing. And also, again, one other thing on Chiefs defense, that's what they did a good job of doing, is that when they rushed Lamar, at least from my vantage point from the TV, they didn't like try to sack him, if that makes sense. Like, again, if you're going to try to contain, like, you got to contain Lamar in the sense of, like, you can't abandon your rushing lanes, you can't let him get outside the pocket, everything like that, 'cause he's faster than you, he's going to beat you to the corner, all those things. But if you can kind of keep him contained to where, like, he's running laterally as opposed to running, like, vertically out of the pocket, then you have a better chance, because you're just going to make him, like, run toward the sideline, and it's going to make it hard for him to get down the field. But as opposed to if you abandon your lanes and give him rushing lanes and he can skirt through them, now he's one-on-one with your linebacker or your safety, and he's going to beat those guys 9 out of 10 times. So, like I said, I thought the Chiefs did a good job in the way in which they rushed Lamar to kind of keep him contained and not let him break and get outside that often. Again, it happens because he's Lamar Jackson. But, it didn't happen too much. Like I said, everybody's playing for second place at this point, and that seems pretty evident. But, again, we'll see how it plays out over the course of the season. And speaking of over the course of the season, as we touched on in the beginning, COVID we knew was going to be an issue, and it's already rearing its ugly head, like I said, in week 3. So we'll talk about that, talk about the teams affected and how it could potentially affect the schedule, and again, just kind of what I think the NFL's plan should be going forward if something like this were to pop up again, because they're not going to be the first and only teams to have this happen to them. So we'll discuss all that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcasting. So the Tennessee Titans have closed their facilities until Saturday after 3 players and 5 team personnel members tested positive for coronavirus, the NFL announced on Tuesday. The 3 players, starting nose tackle Daquan Jones, long snapper Bo Brinkley, and practice squad tight end Tommy Hudson, have all been placed on the reserve COVID-19 list with no official decision. While no official decision has been made yet about the Titans game Sunday against the Steelers in Nashville, the NFL wants and intends to have that game played as scheduled, as a source told ESPN's Adam Schefter. One of the contingency plans to allow for additional testing and contact tracing would be to move the game to Monday night, a source told ESPN. The 8 new positive tests for the Titans have been confirmed after additional testing, a source told ESPN's Kevin Seifert. Those who tested positive have been asymptomatic as of Tuesday morning, a source told ESPN's Dan Graziano. They're just telling a lot of people everything. Obviously, Roger Goodell said this is not unexpected, and there will be players and staff who test positive during the season, which, I mean, again, if you were paying attention, you probably knew that and realized that. The Titans, citing an abundance of caution, issued a statement saying they halted in-person work on Tuesday. The Minnesota Vikings, who played the Titans on Sunday, also closed their facility indefinitely, though the team said there were no positive tests due Tuesday morning. But again, it just makes sense for them to shut it down, seeing as they just played. And also, obviously, they have the most, I don't say the most advanced tests, but I believe they have some of these like rapid tests that can kind of predict things ahead of time, even before you potentially may show symptoms, which may or may not be why the players are asymptomatic currently. Again, they might just be asymptomatic because that's something a lot of people that have COVID are asymptomatic. But again, I think they're some of these new like rapid tests and different things like that. It kind of help predict it as well as like discover it. So like on top of the fact that it can help you see if you are positive, it can help you see if you're positive before symptoms potentially show and you end up spreading it to others. Like I said, so I don't know if that's how it works here, but again, as of Tuesday, Minnesota hasn't had any positive tests, though. Again, that'll be something to monitor as we go later into the week. to see if that keeps up. Because again, Tuesday, that was a Tuesday, you might not test them, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, somebody could pop up, even as maybe even Saturday, because somebody could pop up, and obviously then again, you gotta do things differently, which again, why it makes sense as to why they close the facility. Because again, you just want to be safe. You don't want to potentially risk spreading it to the rest of your team, and then obviously to your community and different things like that. So, it makes sense. The lead contact tracing identified 48 close contacts with the 8 members of the Titans organization who tested positive. Sources told Graziano contingency and rescheduling plans are having discussed for both teams. Sources told ESPN. The NFL issued a statement saying both the Titans and Vikings are working with the league and the NFLPA and medical officials to evaluate close contacts. And the ESPN app shut down on me, so that's really fun. But yeah, so like I was saying, it just makes sense. That, like again, you want to catch this, and if you do catch it, you want to shut it down. Make sure you get everybody tested. You do the proper contact tracing to make sure anybody that may be exposed and may have been exposed can get themselves tested or just be made aware of the fact of this. And also, like I said, since they were the 2 teams that it happened to and they were the ones that took part, it makes sense for them to not then again have practice this week, at least in the immediate. Again, obviously for the Vikings, like if they, I don't know at what point they'd be willing or able to get back on the practice field or get back in the facility if they have enough negative tests throughout the week. But the Titans, like they said, are going to open the facility up again until Saturday, which again is going to be interesting because, again, if you are a team that's supposed to play a game on Sunday, which is, again, the NFL's plan as of this moment. We'll see, again, if they hold firm on that plan. But as of this moment, the plan is for them to play the game on Sunday. And if that is true, how do you do that without really practicing throughout the week? Again, obviously, you can do things remotely and virtually as to where you can like install the game plan and like talk through some things and have your meetings and different things like that. But, I mean, obviously, I imagine, again, never been an NFL player, but I would imagine just like you would in like high school or college or, Pop Warner or whatever, plays that you may have in the game plan or plays you may want to work on for the coming week, you iron them out on the field. Like, all right, we can have a new play installed in our game plan or a new protection or a new coverage we want to try or a new personnel grouping we want to try to use or utilize in this upcoming matchup. And like I said, those things get ironed out during the week because you practice them and rep them and again get yourself prepared to use them during the game. But if they're not doing that, especially on the Titans end of things, they're not even allowed in the facility until Saturday potentially, and that's again assuming there aren't more players that get test positive in the coming days. Like, how do you expect them to play on Sunday? Like, just me, because again, if you've had all these concerns with injuries and no preseason and the lack of real offseason affecting all these injuries earlier in the season, how do you think they'll affect a week if you basically don't practice for a week and then have to prepare? I mean, again, obviously the body needs time off to recuperate and things like that. But if you're not prepping it to play on Sunday, how's it going to be ready to play on Sunday? It's a fair question to ask. So, again, I don't think they're going to do everything they can to not postpone it due to the fact that, unlike other sports, where, like I said, like with baseball, like you could do double headers. Or since they were only playing certain teams in certain areas, like you could figure out a way to work around the schedule and be like, all right, we could play a double header on this day, or like we'll have you stay in this city for a little bit longer so you can play this number of games, things like that. Like, you can't do that with football. You play once a week on almost the same day. Obviously, it's between Sunday, Monday, and Thursday, but most of the time it's on Sundays around a similar time. Like I said, you can't do 2 games in a day. You can't do 2 games. Well, I mean, you can, obviously, because you can play Sunday then play Thursday. Like, it's not like you can't do the same or 2 games in a calendar week, or like I said, you can play Monday and then play Sunday the next week. Like, those things happen. And that's obviously not the norm. Like I said, just not being able to practice for a full week, it does leave me a little curious about how they'll be ready to play on Sunday. Then even with that, like I said, they're not going to try to cancel these games because there's no real, I don't know what their plan would be to try to get them rescheduled. Like I said, obviously they're going to try to like, oh, okay, let's push it back to Monday. Which, I mean, is better than nothing. But like I said, now that hurts both the teams moving forward, like again, now the Steelers are harmed because they play, again, luckily in week 5, they play the Eagles, who are sorry, and it's at home, so they don't have to travel or anything like that. But imagine if you have to like travel, and instead of traveling back home on Sunday, you're traveling home on Monday. Now said you're losing a day of preparation for the new team that you were supposed to play, all because of, like, again, someone else's error that isn't, not error, but just something that is out of your own control. So like I said, it's not just the team, the Titans and the Vikings being inconvenienced, it's their two potential opponents this weekend being inconvenienced, and maybe their opponents maybe not the following week, but again, it's possible. Like I said, if the Vikings end up having any positive tests that come out, whether it's this week or next week, that could potentially affect their opponent that they play on Sunday. And like I said, same thing with the Titans. Like, I know they play the Steelers. So again, you got to see if you're the Steelers. Like, you want to. This is something you're going to want to keep an eye on. Obviously, you're going to prepare as if you have a game. But it's just like, if more positive tests come out, it's like maybe it's not worth it for us to play this team right now. Because, obviously, just because some people have it doesn't mean everybody on the team has it. But at the same time, do you want to risk exposing your team to it when your team, as of this moment, looks fine? Like, I know I wouldn't. And the same thing if I'm the Vikings' new opponent. Like, why would I want to potentially? So that I'm just want to check who the Vikings. The Vikings play the Texans. Like, if I'm the Texans, do I want to put myself at risk potentially if it comes out like on Friday or Saturday, a player or two? Like I said, it's not going to be the whole team, I don't think. But like, if a player or two be test positive on Friday or Saturday. Granted, they did the same thing in Atlanta this weekend where one guy test positive and they just kind of like let it rock, which was kind of interesting to me. But again, maybe whatever contact tracing or whatever they did determined that he hadn't been around anybody recently enough. I mean, that was also a little interesting to me, is the fact that Atlanta had a guy test positive. I think it was like Saturday or sometime this weekend. They were just like, okay, yeah, take him off. We'll play the game as normal. And like I said, who do they play? The Bears. We're just like, yeah, okay, fine with us. And so that was a little iffy for me. But again, there's not really, like, they're going to try to play these games until they can't, because I don't really know what the backup plan would be in this instance, due to the fact that, like I said, making up a game would be very difficult to do in the NFL. So, like I said, they're going to try to hold on until they can't, but it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes and what happens there. And also, imagine they probably got to test the referees too, which I believe that they said they were doing. They said I think they said the referees, their officiating crew from that worked that game, will be tested daily for COVID-19 this week, and out of abundance of caution will not work a game. And see, that's the funny thing. So, like, the refs won't work a game this weekend. Like his Cleet Blakeman's crew won't work a game. But like, the players will just like play a game like fine. Like I said, it's very funny when and how they decide to enforce these certain things. Again, if the referees are like, it's not worth it for you guys to play, but like, again, like, at best they'll move the game to Monday for the Titans. It does seem kind of funny to me. And also, they already had a player, Isaiah Wilson, who was placed on the COVID-19 reserve list earlier this month as well. So I think they were trying to get him back on the practice field this week. So that's unfortunate for them, because obviously that's going to be a lot harder to do, due to the fact that they're probably not going to be able to practice this week. So how are you going to be able to get him back ready to go? So yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And also, along the same lines, like the Raiders, potentially we could have a situation there, due to the fact that I believe it was Darren Waller held a charity event for his foundation that's helping the young adults like fight off like addiction or something like that. But again, he had an event, and at his event there was documented, like, whether it was video or photos of multiple Raiders players out there without the mask on, at an indoor event. And it appears that the team may have broken some Nevada rules for the coronavirus pandemic, along with NFL regulations. So we'll have to kind of see how that plays out, and also kind of see how that goes going forward. Because again, obviously these guys are going to get tested. So if they test positive or they have it, like, we'll know. But it wasn't just like one. It wasn't like just Darren Waller. Like, Derek Carr was there, Nathan Peterman was there. The rest of the tight end group was there. Receivers, Zay Jones and Hunter Renfrow there. Cornerback Nevin Lawson was there. Obviously, Waller was there. So, just like one of those things where, like, these guys were hanging out with guests. Not obviously, I think it was Waller. He posted a picture on his foundation's Instagram page and later deleted it, of an unmasked Carr posed with another unmasked guest, or maskless guest, who had won his jersey in an auction. So obviously, again, the event cool. That's all fine and good. Again, I'm not going to ever knock down somebody for trying to raise money for charity. But at the same time, you have to be smart about it, especially when you're doing it in the NFL. I mean, you got to be smart about it, period, during a pandemic. But if you're in the NFL and you're seeing the different things that are coming out about people testing positive for it, you kind of want to make sure that, hey, look, let's make sure we're not the next team that has an outbreak or whatever. And now, here they are. And again, this is after the team already got fined, and John Gruden got fined for not wearing his mask properly week 2 against the Saints. And also, I believe they had, like I said, like unauthorized personnel in the locker room after the Saints win. So again, they were already in trouble for not necessarily following the rules. And then this is another case of them continuing to not follow the rules. Again, it's just different people. It's not the coach and the personnel or the team. It's the players, specifically this time. And like I said, this is the issue with this, is that you need everyone on the same page and following the rules in order to make sure, there's no like outbreak or anything like that within your team and within the community. And then obviously you don't affect other teams. Because, like, again, we'll see kind of discipline or punishment there is levied down on the Raiders. But as of this moment, like, no one's talking about them being postponed. But, like, again, if they were exposed to it at this event, which you hope that doesn't happen. But if it does, which I mean, because not out of the realm of possibility, now you're talking about risking who do they play this weekend? They play the Bills. Now you're talking about risking the Bills or leaving them at the possibility of being exposed to the virus. So again, you're going to play a game. They're going to be talking. They're going to be communicating. People are going to be tackling each other, hitting each other, be in close proximity on the field, and then obviously after the game. Well, I think there's no like jersey exchanges or stuff like that. So they're trying to limit that. But still, at the same time, due to, I don't know if you want to call it recklessness or carelessness or whatever adjective you want to use to describe these players and not making sure they were following proper protocols with this foundation and with this event, now you potentially risk hurting other teams or exposing other people, whether it's family or friends, whoever. Like I said, it's just unfortunate, and obviously it's something you didn't want to see happen. But again, this is kind of how it happened in the MLB, where some guys may not have followed proper rules, or again, obviously the first couple of the Marlins and the Cardinals, that was before the stricter rules were put in place. But like the Indians, they had people not following the proper protocols and like going out, hanging out with friends and being out past the curfew and different things like that. And then obviously it never really got that bad after that in the MLB, because again, people were more cautious of it and conscientious about doing the right thing. They said, when you see stuff like this, you're just like, do people understand the severity of it? And it's fair to question that at this point in time. So like I said, hopefully nothing happens or nothing comes out of that Raiders event. But again, you need to be cautious, you need to be mindful of what you're doing and how you're, and whether you're risking your own health or someone else's health in trying to control this. Because like I said, I don't know how the Titans players got it, but I don't imagine that it was, and I mean, you never know, but we don't know for a fact, but we have documented proof that the Raiders may or may not get it from an event that was thrown indoors that was allowing people not to wear masks, that broke not only NFL regulations, but also their own state regulations and guidelines. So, like I said, we'll see what kind of discipline and comes down from that, but hopefully, if whatever they decide to do, whatever punishment they have, it'll show players like, hey, look, you guys got to take this seriously. Because if you want to finish the season, you got to take it seriously. Like I said, they're not in a bubble. They're not like all enclosed. They're not enclosed off from the rest of the world, where you're in an environment where generally speaking, everybody doesn't have the virus. They're getting tested all the time. And you're not. Again, if the virus isn't in, then you can't really. There's nowhere for it to go. But again, since you're just out in public and traveling, doing different things, there's a chance you'll get exposed to it. So you got to be mindful of who you're around and how you're around them. And again, it just seems like they weren't as careful as they could have been, the Raiders were. So, like I said, we'll see what happens with the Titans and the Vikings if their games get pushed back a day, or they're able to play it off, or play it smoothly, or if any other positive test comes from this. And also, again, we'll keep our eyes on the Raiders as well, because again, they may not test positive Wednesday or Thursday, because again, that might be too soon. But check back Friday or Sunday or Monday or something like that, just to see if anything comes of this. Like I said, I hope not, but you never know. So again, we'll see about all that stuff as the week goes on. And speaking of as the week goes on, by the time, probably before you guys, before you guys will probably hear this before the game, but on Wednesday, the NBA Finals start. So I'm going to preview that, give my predictions, who I think is going to win, Finals MVP, the matchup, how many games will go, all that fun stuff. We'll talk about it right after the break. So stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, the NBA Finals, as we said, set to start on Wednesday. 7-game series between the Heat and the Lakers. Maybe not the two teams that people expected to... the Lakers, some people, obviously, again, you can look up different things in the immediate aftermath of the Kawhi Leonard decision and you'll see a lot of the Clippers are going to be the favorites, or the Bucks, or the Sixers, blah, 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 whoever. But it was pretty evident by Christmas that, even though I think they technically didn't they lose to the Clippers on Christmas? I could be wrong about that. But it was pretty evident or obvious to me early in that season that the Lakers were the best team in the West. And obviously everybody was like, oh, how the AD, I know me myself, I was like, oh, will these new pieces be able to fit? And how will AD and LeBron get together and how will they work out? But again, generally speaking, I feel like a wing player and a big, even though AD likes to play a lot on the wing, it's easier to kind of work out and kind of get the chemistry going earlier than it would be two wing guys. Again, the Clippers, for example. They had a similar thing where they had most of their team, they had to add in Paul George and Kawhi, but Paul George was coming off shoulder surgery, so he really didn't play that much earlier in the season. And then Kawhi, obviously, with the load management and the different injuries and things they had to deal with throughout the season, where they never really were able to get that rhythm going, and then they work on their chemistry and fine-tune their chemistry just because they didn't really play a whole lot of games as a collective unit. And even, like I said, now obviously they traded for Marcus Morris later in the season, different things. They added some guys throughout the year, but they're never able to get that chemistry working together. And like I said, on a team where one that's a bunch of wing dominant players with, like I said, Kawhi, PG, Lou Will. Montrez is a smaller guy. I mean, not a big man. But, again, his main thing is being involved in pick and roll. It's not like he's a spot-up shooter. It's not like he's a good, or a great post-up player. I think a lot of his points are scored in pick and roll between him and Lou Will. That was their bread and butter the last couple of years. So, like I said, this is a different kind of dynamic. But like I said, everybody, and that's fair, the Lakers fans have been saying this, and obviously, it was fair to wonder, at least when you had all these guys and you're adding in, like I said, you brought in Avery Bradley, you brought in Rondo, you brought in JaVale, you brought in Dwight, KCP, well, I guess was brought back, Danny Green, different guys. You're all right, let's see how this works. And again, obviously, very early on, it was clear that it was going to work out fine. And now they're here. Like I said, on the flip side, the Heat, for example, they were a team that a lot of people, when Jimmy Butler went there, people were like, oh, I'm not going to say I wasn't one of them, because I wasn't sure, because again, they hadn't made the playoffs. I didn't know that Duncan Robinson was the best shooter in the NBA. Was unaware of that. I knew Bam was good, but he hadn't taken that next step, and obviously he took the next step. I thought Tyler Hero would be good. I didn't think he would be scored 37 in a conference finals game in his rookie season. Level good. Did not know about Kendrick Nunn. Obviously, I knew Spo was a good coach. I knew they had Dragic and some other guys. Obviously, they were able to add Jay Crowder and Iggy during the season, and that helped them out a great deal. They were important pieces to their team. Obviously, Jay Crowder's been a little shaky shooting from three in the playoffs, but for overall, he's been very good for them. And same with Iggy. And obviously, he was great in that Game 6 against the Celtics. But yeah, this was a team that not many people thought could get this far. Again, obviously, everyone was like, oh, the Jimmy Butler there went for the sunshine and the money. Well, no, again, obviously, maybe they felt they could get this far, but generally speaking, most other people didn't. But again, that's not really what matters. It doesn't matter what the outside world thinks. It doesn't matter what people on Twitter or analysts or podcast hosts, whoever. It doesn't matter what they think. It just matters what the players think and how they play on the court. And obviously, the Heat showed themselves to be one of the better teams in the East on the court during the season. And then obviously, once the bubble started, and especially the playoffs started, they showed that, I mean, they've been the best team in the Eastern Conference in the playoffs, in my opinion. Like I said, they won their first round series in 4 games, won their second round series in 5 games, and this one took 6. But again, they've never really, it's never really been, none of their series have ever really been in doubt, you would say. Like, none of them were like, oh, it's uncertain, like, oh, they got to come back. Like, they never have to do like a 3-1. They've never even really, they're never down like 2-1, anything like that. Like, that never happened. They were always in control of all their series. I said that's why I got to their point. And like I said, on the flip side, same thing with the Lakers. Like, the Lakers haven't had a series go past 5 games yet. And we'll see if this one goes past 5. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I know we don't have an official prediction. But, like I said, just on paper, this is a very interesting and a very good matchup. And it's going to be a very defensive-heavy matchup. Because both of these teams are very, very good defensive teams. Especially in the half court. Like I said, the Lakers' half-court offense is a little spotty at times because, again, they don't have consistent shooting. They have shooters. But, if KCP's shooting well or Danny Green shooting well, then that obviously opens things up. If Caruso or Kuzma or Rondo, whoever's hitting threes, like, that opens things up to the offense. But, like, I mean, outside of KCP, like, none of those guys have been that consistent in the playoffs from shooting. Obviously, Rondo's been consistent because the playoff round is a thing. But, again, shooting the ball in the playoffs has not really been, they haven't really been great from distance. And like I said, that's going to matter when you're going up against probably the best 3-point shooting team in the league. And like I said, that's the thing with 3-point shooting teams is that, like, they could have a series where, like, you saw, like, 2013 with the Spurs, obviously, as we know, the Spurs lost. But Danny Green, actually, okay, so just real quick, Rondo has the highest 3-point percentage on the team. With 44%, obviously outside of Quinn Cook, who was barely even played. But of guys that have played a decent amount of minutes, he's shooting 44% from 3. Morris is shooting 43.6. KCP shooting 42. And like the next highest guy that gets a lot of minutes for them is Davis, who's shooting 36. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, Caruso's not shooting that well during the playoffs, that is. Kuzma's not shooting that well. LeBron's not shooting that well. Like, Danny Green, all those guys shooting about average. And Caruso and Kuzma are worse than that. But we'll kind of see who has a good series. That's really what it comes down to, is like a good series. You don't need it in you don't need somebody to play well for 82 games. You need them to play well for potentially 7. And as we saw what I was talking about with Danny Green, where he had those record number of threes. I think it was through like the first 5 games, and obviously it didn't end up mattering. But like, that could be Duncan Robinson, that could be Tyler Hero, that could be Jay Crowder, that could be like I said, that could be KCP. That could be, probably not going to be Rondo, but it could be like Morris or like Caruso or Kuzma, if one of those guys, Danny Green again. Like I said, that's an interesting thing to see. Because if you look at it just on a star-for-star matchup, like obviously the Lakers have arguably 2 of the best 5 players in the world. Like, that's going to be tough to beat for most teams. Like I said, generally speaking, you take the best player in the series. And the Lakers, in many people's eyes, and I would agree with this, have the two best players in the series. I said they're in the distance between 2 and 3, who's probably, and again, it depends on who you want to put at 3, because is it Jimmy Butler? Is it Bam? Like I said, you could argue between those two who their third. It's been Dragic sometimes in the series, like who's the Heat's best player. But regardless, the gap between those two, Anthony Davis and LeBron, and the next Heat guys, because then you could argue they may have the next 4. If you want to throw Bam, Jimmy Butler, Dragic, and, like, say, Hero. Like, you could argue maybe those guys are better than, like, KCP or Rondo or whoever. But at least the first 3 are definitely better, in my opinion. And like I said, the gap between those guys and Rondo and KCP and, like, Hero and all those guys, like, that gap is smaller than the gap between whoever their best player is, Bam or Jimmy, or I guess Dragic if you want to throw him in there as well, and Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Like, that gap is pretty massive. Like I said, that might be enough. Like I said, not every time, because there'll be many series that you would argue LeBron's been the best player coming into the series. Outside of maybe 2017, that first KD year. Like, it was clear KD. Like, the difference between the two teams was that KD was on the Warriors and not on the Cavs. As good as LeBron James was, like, it was clear that he got outplayed. And then 2018, even though, again, the team was worse, but, I mean, he had the 50-point game LeBron did in that game one. And obviously, if they win that game, if George Hill hits a free throw, or Jared Smith remembers how much time's left on the clock, or what the score is, like, the Lakers may go differently. I'm not saying they win, but at least, again, that maybe that series goes 6 or 7, as opposed to, I think it went like 5, if that. And I said the series probably goes a little bit differently if they win that first game, especially with the performance LeBron put up in that first game. Like, when you look back on outside 2007, because again, he was young at the time, but from 2011 to 2018, you could argue that LeBron's been the best player in almost every one of those series. And in that time frame, he's 3-5 in the finals. So having the best player doesn't always matter. It doesn't. Like I said, it's like, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But that doesn't mean like, oh, they have LeBron and they have AD, like that means they'll win. Like, no, that's not that simple. Like I said, if the Heat can do a good job defensively, especially in the half court, and don't allow them to get out in transition, don't turn the ball over a lot, and are knocking down their threes, it'll make it hard for the Lakers. Like I said, and also I don't think they're going to. And Anthony Davis and LeBron are great players, so it's not going to be easy. But I don't think Spo's going to allow them to dominate because they haven't done that with any series. I said the best players on the Pacers, the best players on the Bucks, and the best players on the Celtics have not been the reason like, obviously why they won, because they didn't win. Like I said, they did a good job against T.J. Warren, who was amazing in the bubble up until that point. Did a great job against Giannis, and obviously he got hurt eventually, but then they did a good enough job on Chris Middleton to keep things under wraps. And then again, they did a good job, and some of it was lack of aggressiveness, but they did a very good job on Jason Tatum, who's the Celtics' best player. And obviously, and also did a very good job on Kemba. I said Marcus Smart had his moments, Jaylen Brown had his moments, different guys had their moments, but they didn't allow their best players to beat them. So like I said, I don't think they're going to let, and let's not the right word because you guys are great, I don't think they're going to make it easy for LeBron and AD to beat them. Like I said, that might not matter. I don't think they're going to make it easy for them to beat them. And I think another thing that helps out the Heat in a little bit is that the fact that 2 of the 3 teams then the third team was the Rockets, who just didn't have anybody that could guard Anthony Davis. But 2 of the 3 teams that they played in the bubble, in the playoffs, have been good defensive teams. Like the Blazers aren't a good defensive team, and the Nuggets aren't a good defensive team consistently. And they've had their moments, but like the Blazers are definitely a bad defensive team. The Rockets were good in that first round series, but that was mainly because the Thunder did not have the shooting ability to keep them honest, or the big inside to exploit their small ball lineup. Because obviously, as Mike and Tony Fancy pointed out, the Lakers did go small. They didn't play JaVale, they didn't play Dwight that much in that series, but they had Anthony Davis as a center when they went small, or Markieff Morris. Like that. That's a difference. Like I said, they didn't, like the Heat are a very, very sound defensive team. They're going to throw some things at them, obviously with their zones and the kind of ways they match up and the ways they can defend them. And I guess that'll be an interesting thing. Like, how do the Lakers try to counteract that? Will they do it like they did with the Nuggets? Will they go big and try to utilize Dwight and, I don't know about JaVale, but utilize Dwight and JaVale against Bam? Because Bam's their center. And like I said, I imagine that maybe, but like I said, or they have him guard Anthony Davis and like Jimmy Butler or Jay Crowder guard Dwight or JaVale. I don't know how they're going to work, and obviously again have to figure out who's going to guard LeBron. But then obviously if the Lakers go small, obviously that helps out the Heat because then they can try to have Bam defend Anthony Davis. Don't know how well it's going to work, but they can at least try that. And like I said, them going small probably plays into the Heat's hands because they don't really. Their backup big is who, like Kelly Olynyk. Unless Myles Leonard's going to get a lot of run, which I would imagine he's not in the series. And I said, who's going to defend them if the Lakers decide to go big? And again, obviously you're not going to play the game through Dwight and through JaVale. But if the Lakers start Dwight, you're going to have Bam guard him, and then obviously you're going to have him guard Bam, and he could maybe get, like he did with Jokic, get him in foul trouble. And again, that throws a whole wrench into how the Heat want to play offense, because again, they utilized him in many cases and many opportunities, kind of like the Nuggets utilized him. You utilize Jokic, as a point center, where they can run the offense through him, have the ball out top, make decisions with passing the ball and like shooting or like doing different things. Obviously, he's not the 3-point shooter that Jokic can be, but again, the style of play is similar with how they defend Jokic and Bam. Like I said, Bam's more athletic and can do different things. The Jokic King is a little bit faster and quicker and things like that. But again, in terms of having experience defending that kind of offense, they have that with the Nuggets. But obviously, again, the 3-point shooting is different. Like, instead of having Gary Harris or Jeremy Grant or Paul Millsap, you're having Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero and Dragic and Jay Crowder, or guys like that are a little bit better 3-point shooters consistently shoot the ball. So like I said, that's going to matter. Because like I said, when Gary Harris wasn't really providing a whole lot, obviously Jeremy Grant had his moments, and so did Millsap and Michael Porter Jr., different guys. But again, the Heat are the best 3-point shooting team in the league. Have the best 3-point shooter in the league in Duncan Robinson. So that's a little bit different, and the types of ways in which they utilize him and they run their offense to get their threes is a little bit different. He's going to shoot a lot of weird shots off of handoffs and doing different things. Same with Hero. Same with Dragic, like again, and same with Crowder. They're going to try to drive, penetrate, kick out, do different things. Where again, the Nuggets was a lot more of a 2-man game with Murray and Jokic, and they kind of just did everything based around that. Like I said, that's not going to be the style. Again, you're going to see a lot of picks and rolls, different things with Dragic and Bam and Jimmy Butler and Bam, things like that. But again, they're going to drive. Like Jimmy Butler is not always going to drive to try to score. Where Murray was more driving, try to score. As opposed to, again, he would kick it out from time to time. But then again, you have Gary Harris shooting as opposed to Duncan Robinson. That's a big difference. So, yeah, and then like I said, on the offensive end, it'll just be dependent how they defend Anthony Davis. And just who you have defend Anthony Davis. So that they go big, like you can't have Bam on him. Because then again, you're going to get beat on the boards by Dwight. Or even get beat down low by Dwight if you want to give him some touches down there. And also how do you defend LeBron. And also, again, making sure the others don't beat you. Because like I said, if LeBron and Anthony Davis beat you, that's one thing. But if you let KCP shoot like 50% from three this series, or like Rondo continues to shoot well, or Morris, or like you let Kuzma get going, somebody like that, like that's where the Heat could fall into trouble. And again, they haven't had that happen consistently throughout the playoffs. But that's just what I'd be worried about. Because again, you're going to focus a lot of attention on LeBron and focus a lot of attention on Anthony Davis. How do you stop the other guys from beating you? Or how do you make sure the other guys don't beat you? Because again, they're going to get opportunities, they're going to get shots, they're going to get chances. You need to make sure that you don't allow them to capitalize on those chances, and also you don't turn the ball over and make the Lakers beat you in the half court. As I said, their half court offense can be shaky at times, and the Heat's half court defense is solid, whether it's zone or man. So you don't want to let them out transition, let LeBron run, let LeBron get going downhill, let him find or throw outlet passes to AD, find the shooters in transition, things like that. You don't want that to happen. And as I said, same thing if you're the Heat. You don't want the Heat to get out in transition where you could get matched up wrong, and now you got a big guy on Hero or Duncan, you're trying to run them off screen, the different things. Like again, you don't want to turn the ball over too much against the Heat and their defense, so that they can get out and run and go in transition and get 3-point easier 3-point opportunities than they would in the half court. So, I said that'll be interesting to see and kind of how that plays out. But for the prediction wise, at this point, I probably have to go Lakers. And I'm not going to say 5. I'll give the Heat 2 games because they're shooting. So I'll give them in 6. Lakers in 6. But like I said, I just think at the end of the day, having the 2 best players and having them be the 2 best players by a significant margin is going to matter. Like I said, I don't know what they do to stop Anthony Davis. Again, you're going to try with Bam. And maybe it'll work. Like I said, that might work. But again, if they decide to go big and don't just allow you to go small, or don't try to play in your hands by going small, because again, Bam isn't the quote unquote traditional center. And like I said, I don't like their backup big as well, like Kelly Olynyk, technically, I guess, of the guy that comes off their bench. I don't know if he's not gonna be able to defend Anthony Davis. So I don't know what their plan is. Or like you're gonna put Jay Crowder, or you're gonna put Iggy, or you're gonna put the Jay Crowders, the Iggy's, Jimmy Butler. Those are guys you throw at LeBron, and that makes sense. But like, who are you gonna have guard Anthony Davis if Bam's not out there? Because again, if Bam's out there, all right, it makes sense. But then if they play JaVale, if they play Dwight out there, who are you gonna have to guard Dwight? I think it's gonna be interesting. That chess match there is gonna be interesting. But like again, Spo is one of the better coaches in the league. So again, I don't think he's gonna have trouble scheming up defense against LeBron and against AD, I would think. But again, we'll see how it plays out. But like I said, I just think, generally speaking, having the best players in the series matter. I don't think it will matter in this case because again, The Heat have a very solid team, just like the Lakers have a very solid team. Their others are better than the Lakers' others, in my opinion. But it's just that I don't know if they'll be able to make up the gap. Like, will Jimmy Butler and Bam be able to make up the gap on Anthony Davis and LeBron James? If they're going to get average like 60 points this series, and Bam and Jimmy Butler average about 40, like, will the Heroes, the Dragic's, the Crowders, the Iggy's, the Duncan Robinsons of the world, will they be able to make up that gap? And over a couple games, yes, I believe they could. But for over a 7-game series, I don't know. Like I said, we'll see what happens. The Heat have obviously had a great season. The Lakers have obviously had a great season. They've gotten this far. But, again, I'm not a betting man, so it doesn't really matter. But if I can put money on a team, I'm going to go with the Lakers. And like I said, I think the Lakers in 6 right now. But, again, neither outcome would surprise me because I think as much as they try to play it down, this really matters to both franchises. Like, again, the Lakers, and I think LeBron wants to beat Pat Riley. Yeah, even though obviously he's not out there on the court. He's not out there coaching. But, again, obviously some of the attention they've had upon him leaving is kind of, I think, and then again, we'll see how much incentive he has after the 2016 finals, so I think that was some motivation there. But again, now you get to face him, get to face that team, and get to face that organization that may or may not have thought you wouldn't be as good without them. And the same thing with Spo and Pat Riley. They're going to want to show LeBron, like, look, like we told you, like, if you leave, you're not going to be as successful without us. And we know you well, and we're going to show you how you can beat you, especially at an older age, because obviously they had prime LeBron, probably the best LeBron, in my opinion. The Heat LeBron was the best LeBron. At least in terms of physical performance and, like, his athleticism and things like that. And obviously this LeBron's more cerebral and can do different things in different ways, but in terms of, like, peak LeBron, I think probably that 2012-2013 season was peak LeBron. Physically, at least. So again, Spo and Pat Riley are going to have incentive to want to beat LeBron, even though, again, he's not on the Cavs or anything like that. He's on the Lakers. But I think they're not going to want to lose to LeBron either. And again, they won't say that. I don't think it'll be a big back and forth in the media, things like that. But again, on the inside, they're going to want to try to win in that regard. Like I said, I think at this point, I feel like I have to go with the Lakers until someone proves me wrong, because again, they haven't had the series go past 5 games so far. Like I said, they've been dominant. Like I said, the Heat had been dominant in their own right, but again, they were tested, and maybe that'll help them in the series, because again, the Lakers haven't really been all that tested. They won 4 straight in the first 2 rounds, and they won. Like I said, then they won the other series in 5. Like, they haven't had a series go past 5, and none of this, and most of them haven't always been the most competitive games either. So again, we'll see how it plays out. As of this moment, I'm going Lakers in 6. Should be a fun series. It should be interesting. Like I said, I'm interested to watch. I'm interested to see how it plays out. But if I were going to pick a team, I would probably go Lakers. So, see how it plays out. And speaking of LA, the Clippers apparently are looking for a new coach. I said they should be looking for a new coach. I thought they'd be doing it sooner than they did, but apparently they reached that point. So we'll discuss that, kind of how they got there, and kind of what the next steps for them and for their coaches. So we'll discuss all that, or their former coach, I guess I should say. So we'll discuss all that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Doc Rivers is out as LA Clippers coach after a disappointing end to the season. which again, I said should have happened. I figured was going to happen, though. I was uncertain a little bit after it said, oh, he's going to get brought back, he's going to get brought back. And I was like, really? I don't know. Especially, again, not because I think Doc's a terrible coach or he's a bad person, blah, 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 none of those things. But, as a coach, when you lose 3-1 leads in your career, 2 with this franchise, and especially in a season where you were at least supposed to make the conference finals. Now, again, if you lose to the Lakers, you lose in the NBA finals, okay, you can live with that. That's one thing. But they were at least supposed to get to the conference finals, in my opinion. Obviously, they may not consider that. Obviously, you heard Paul George said it wasn't championship or bust, blah, blah, blah. But, again, they were at least supposed to make it to the conference finals. Like, when you add Paul George and you add Kawhi, that's what you expect. Like, again, the Lakers didn't add Anthony Davis to lose in the second round. Like, they added Anthony Davis, they thought that gave them the best chance to compete for a championship. And obviously they were right. And again, maybe they could have still competed for a championship with Lonzo and Brandon Ingram and their pick. Yeah, then they traded the pick to like whoever I forget, who did they? No, I think then the Pelicans had to trade in the pick because they got the number 1 picks they didn't really need it. And like maybe they like again with their draft pick and like Josh Hart and all that stuff. Like they could have used that. And I mean, they still would have made the finals anyway, because again, Brandon Ingram played at the level he played at this year with the Lakers and not the Pelicans. I think they probably would have been in decent shape, but obviously, again, things in the Davis defensively and offensively is better than whatever Lonzo and Brandon Ingram and Josh Hart or whoever else could have given them, in my personal opinion. Like I said, you make those additions to compete for the finals. You don't make those additions to get knocked out in the first or second round. That's why and again, I don't think when OKC traded for Paul George, they expect them to get to the finals, but that was just like, all right, this is going to get us over the hump to get back into contention for like a conference or Western Conference final, something like that, and obviously it didn't work. And that the team was able to, was broken up. In part because obviously Kawhi came calling and said he wanted to come to LA, but they did not. Again, like I said, they didn't make it to the conference finals, and they blew a 3-1 lead in the process. So it's hard to justify. Like somebody gotta take the fall for that. Wasn't sure who it was gonna be, but somebody had to take the fall. And it's easier to get rid of the coach than it is to get rid of the players, especially when the players only there guaranteed for 1 more year. Like Doc Rivers could have been there for much longer than that, but the players are only guaranteed to be there 1 more year because again they got the opt out, different things. So yeah, he stepped down as coach in what Chairman Steve Ballmer called a mutual decision. The team fell well short of expectations this season, as I said. And Doc has been a terrific head coach for the Clippers and an incredible ambassador and a pillar of strength during tumultuous times, i.e. the Donald Sterling situation, and obviously also the race conversation that was happening in the bubble. Ballmer said in a statement on Monday, he won a heck of a lot of games and laid the foundation for this franchise. Rivers had 2 years left on his current contract, sources told ESPN's Woj. As we said, they lost a 3-1 lead in the semifinals with Denver Nuggets, surrendering leads of 16, 19, and 12 points as the franchise Western Conference Finals drought reached 50 games. Rivers has been the coach in 5 of the Clippers' 6 best years, well, these regular season years, but again, obviously they haven't made the conference finals yet, and at some point, maybe he's not the guy to get you over the hump. Obviously put out a statement thanking their organization for everything he had done, or for everything they'd given him, and supporting him, things like that. And like I said, it's obviously an unfortunate decision that had to be made during this time, but in my opinion, it's one that made a whole lot of sense. In Rivers' 7 seasons at the helm, the Clippers went 356 and 208, a winning percentage of 63%. In the regular season, obviously, the 5th best record in the NBA and the best by any team without a conference finals appearance. Rivers went 3-8 in potential series clinching games, with the Clippers tied for the worst mark by a single coach with one team, and his 943 career wins his 11th all-time by a head coach. So with the Clipper job now open, that now leaves Philly, Indiana, Oklahoma City, New Orleans, Houston, and the Clippers as the current job openings. New York Knicks, Brooklyn, and Chicago have already filled their vacancies in the offseason. Rivers' departure means the league is also only down to 4 black coaches: Lloyd Pierce in Atlanta, J.B. Bickerstaff in Cleveland. Did not realize he was coaching Cleveland. Monty Williams in Phoenix, and Dwayne Casey in Detroit. Rivers is the 3rd black coach to either step down or be fired this offseason, joined by Nate McMillan and Alvin Gentry. Though, in fairness to all those guys, I think Nate McMillan's the one's a little bit shaky, but Alvin Gentry was warranted in my opinion. Like, he'd been there for a while, hadn't really done a whole lot. And Doc Rivers again. You can't lose the way they lost. Again, you lose to the Lakers in the conference finals in a tough 6-7 game series. He's not getting fired. Would you blow a 3-1 lead in the semifinals against the Nuggets in a year that, again, maybe they didn't think it was championship or bust, but most of the outsiders was championship or bust? Yeah, that might happen. Especially again when it's like they blew it. They doubly blew it because in each game they were up double digits at a certain point, and then they lost those games consecutively to lose the series. Like I said, it wasn't just like they blew the 3-1 lead. Like think about like when the Lakers, not naming the Lakers, when the OKC or when the Warriors blew their 3-1 leads in 2016. Like, it wasn't the same way. Like in Game 5, the Warriors kind of dominated that one. In Game 6, obviously the Thunder did have the lead, but then you had a historic performance from Clay. And then Game 7. You knew they weren't going to lose that game in Oracle. And then in the finals, they took, obviously Draymond got suspended for Game 5, but Kyrie and LeBron both put up like 41, I think was in the Game 5. Then I think they had another great performance in Game 6, and then obviously LeBron had the triple-double in Game 7, and Kyrie hit the game-winning shot. Like, it was close. So you blew the lead, but it wasn't like you had double digits. It kind of how I'm surprised Terry Stotts has a job. Because in Portland, they got swept, not this postseason, obviously, last postseason, in the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, there's injuries and different things that helped play that part, but they were up big in every one of those games and got swept. Like I said, that would have been, in my opinion, a fireable offense if they hadn't reached the conference finals for the first time in a long time. And also, again, there was one of those, like, oh, we're not supposed to be here, no one expects us to be here, blah, blah, blah kind of things. But again, you could argue that was fireable when you can't get swept when you up double digits in every game. Especially, like, again, most of those were in the second half, too. Like, that was a disaster. But, like I said, it doesn't sound like the decision came easy for Steve Ballmer. Apparently talked to different guys within the organization, talked to even some of the players. But it sounds like, even though initially they were like, we're not going to fire Dr. Rivers, they decided, like, you know what? Yeah, maybe it's time to move on. Like I said, apparently, like, he had conversations with Kawhi and Paul George, and apparently he didn't allow those to sway his decision on, again, that's the thing, when you're the boss, you make the decisions no matter what everybody else thinks or says. So, like I said, that's fair. And it sounds like he had made his mind up, like, especially after seeing the Lakers probably get to the finals, you're like, yeah, you know what? Nah, it doesn't sit right with me. And like I said, if in the days leading up to this, he tried to talk to the guys and they gave whatever arguments they gave, and he was just like, it's not compelling enough. And they decided to let him go. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see who they pick due to the fact that, like, how are you going to pick? And I imagine maybe it might just be an internal hire. Like, maybe they'll just promote Sam Cassell or, like, Ty Lue or somebody like that. Again, I don't know. But it'd be interesting because anybody that takes that job, the way it looks next season as opposed to, like, 2-3 seasons from now could be very different. Like I said, Kawhi and Paul George are only under contract there for this next year. Well, again, obviously they have the opt-outs and different things. But they're only guaranteed to be there through next year. And if things go horribly awry, and Kawhi decides to leave, and then maybe Paul George doesn't want to stay, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, we'll see. Like I said, if that happens, then that's not the team you signed up to coach. And like I said, that also doesn't involve whether you bring Montrezl Harrell back, whatever you do with Marcus Morris. Like, there's other decisions that need to be made there that I think will kind of scare some coaches. Obviously, it's probably the best job on the market, I would argue. Because obviously you're in LA, you're in Staples, you got a owner that is willing to spend money. You got a guy who wants to win, so he cares about that more than he cares about, like, ticket sales or jersey sales or things like that. And also, again, you get to coach Kawhi and Paul George, which is not a bad gig. But at the same time, you might only get to coach them for a year if things don't go right. So like I said, that's scary for the coach because, like, I don't know what this team's going to look like in 2 years or 3 years. And you kind of mortgage the future on Paul George and Kawhi being the guys that can lead you guys to not only just the conference finals, but to an NBA finals. And like I said, they have no picks for the next 6 years, something like that. Like I said, their best young player is Landry Shamet, Zubats, maybe Terrence Mann. I think that's the guy from Florida State. Because obviously they traded away Shea. So again, if something goes awry, and even, like I said, maybe Paul George stays, but if Kawhi leaves, then, like, what are you left with? Like, again, you got Lou Will. You might have Montrez. You might not. You have Shamet. You have Zubats. Like I said, it's a very different team, and the cupboard's very bare to try to figure out how to replace it. And the Clippers aren't the Lakers. Obviously, they can attract guys, and they have attracted guys, because they were able to get Chris Paul, and they were able to get Kawhi, and different things. They'd be able to attract guys in trades and different things. But this is like a free agent hotspot. Teams aren't just like, or players aren't just like, yes, get me to the Clippers. At least up until recently. Obviously, that hadn't really been the case. And like I said, maybe it'll change, but I think a lot of that had to do, and a lot of that respect came with Doc. And because obviously, whether you think he's a good or bad coach, I think he, like most of that 2008 Celtics team, has gotten a lot of mileage out of that one championship. Obviously, Ray Allen has gone on and won another championship, so he's a little bit different. And we'll see what happens with Rondo. But like Paul Pierce, he's on TV, on ESPN, being able to talk and say things like his era is out of the league, and these guys are scared of LeBron now, even though LeBron beat up on him basically the moment he left to go to Miami. Like I said, they're allowed to say things, and Doc got the mileage he did with the Clippers due to his championship with the Celtics. And again, that was the first year of their big three. Like, again, they struggled post that. They never won a championship. Like I said, they won that one championship. Again, it's more than nothing. But I don't think they traded for those guys to win one championship. They made it back to another finals, but obviously lost to the Lakers in that one. And after that, the Celtics have been trying to get back over that hump. And Doc specifically left. He didn't want to be a part of the rebuild. So there's that. But yeah, like I said, he got a lot of mileage, and he got a lot of leeway, and also kind of leading them through the Down Sterling thing helped get him some of that mileage with the organization. But as a coach, some of his rigidity and his rotations and his lack of being able to adapt different things has hurt him in the playoffs, as we've seen. Like I said, he's been very bad. If you look up his record in series clinching games, he's been very bad. All of the series go longer than they should. Like, for whatever reason, they can't seem to close teams out. Doesn't matter whether he was in Orlando, whether he was in Boston, whether he was in L.A. Even that Boston team, I think they went to Game 7 twice that first year. It's not like they were some dominant team. Like, they won the championship, but it's not like they were like a dominant force that just blew through the NBA that first year. Like I said, it's just that it's been tough for the Clippers to get to this level. But again, it's just like, is getting to the second round good enough? Well, that's not what you brought Kawhi there for. You didn't bring Kawhi and Paul George there to get to the second round. You brought them there to get the conference finals for the first time and also get to the finals eventually. Like I said, if you're going to be able to do that, you have to, if you're going to be able to do that, you have to get over that hump. And like I said, maybe Doc Rivers wasn't the coach to get you over that hump. So I said, they got to figure out who they're going to go with from there, because again, the options out there aren't like the greatest if you're looking for championship quality head coaches, and unless again you're going after Ty Lue. In which obviously Ty Lue's been talked about with the Sixers job and some other jobs. But again, he's going to have the respect, you would think, of the players. And again, would depend, because I know there are reports out there that maybe Doc lost the locker room. And if that's true, then obviously you got to let him go. Because you can't once you lose the locker room, you can't get it back, especially if they're going to try to run him back with a similar team. It's not going to go better. But again, maybe they'll have more respect for Ty Lue, or some level of respect for Ty Lue still, as opposed to bringing in a brand new guy fresh off the street. Even like Vogel, when he went to the Lakers, obviously he had success and he'd faced LeBron before, so LeBron had his respect. So that helped. Obviously, he never won a championship, or at least not as a head coach. I don't know if he won as an assistant or things like that, but as a head coach. But he had a good track record, so that helped his case. Like I said, Ty Lue maybe could be that guy. If you want to go Sam Cassell, maybe not. We'll see. Like I said, they got to figure something out, because a lot of teams are already interviewing guys, bringing in guys, things like that. So you're kind of a little bit behind the eight ball when it comes to that. But like I said, you may have the most attractive job on the market, so that should help your case. Unless you just want to promote Ty Lue, and that should be pretty simple. Just like, hey, I know you're talking about going to Philly. Like, nah, come on, bro. Just stay in LA. Look, we'll give you the keys. like I said, maybe he doesn't want the keys. Maybe he wants the keys to Simmons and Embiid. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But I would hope he didn't fire Doc Rivers unless he had a guy in mind he wanted to replace him. Don't know who that guy would be, but you can't fire him without a plan in place, I would think. Especially not this late in the game where guys are already being interviewed and teams are already picking up their head coaches. And you want to have a plan. You're going to let go of a guy like Doc. Because as good or bad as I think he is as a coach, at least he has a proven track record for being successful and winning games and getting you to the postseason. Like in the next guy they bring in may or may not have that. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And also from Doc Rivers' perspective, the job's available. I don't imagine he'll go without a job. Well, I don't want to say that because again, losing that lead the way he did, that could be an issue. But if he does have a job or does want a job, and he doesn't mind coaching some young guys, I would imagine the Pelicans job would be the most enticing, at least to me. Because obviously you got Simmons and Embiid out there, but I don't really know if Doc's got to kind of figure out how to use those guys. You got Houston if you want to coach James Harden and Russ, which And also, again, you have a similar situation with the Clippers, where they mortgage their future for Russell Westbrook, and that might not be the best decision. So there's that. And like I said, I don't think he's going to go to OKC. Like, he's been in Boston, he's been in Orlando, he's been in LA. So, like, bigger cities, bigger markets. Obviously, Atlanta's not the biggest market, but again, obviously you got the Boston and LA. Like, those are two big markets, especially when it comes to sports. Like, OKC's a good franchise and a good organization, and it's going to be stable, but it's not the type of market that he's used to being in. But I said New Orleans, a smaller market team, but they have some pieces there with Zion and Lonzo and Brandon Ingram and Jackson Hayes and whoever they pick in the draft. Like I said, they have some pieces there where it's like, all right, you could build something for the future. And again, if he doesn't mind doing that, again, if he just wants to get right back to the championship contending, all right, then you probably go with the Sixers or the Houston Rockets. I don't think the Pacers aren't going to be there. I don't think the Thunder are going to get there that soon. Obviously, they're about to enter a rebuild, so that's not going to happen. Who else is available? I'm trying to think. What were the other? Because I know it was Indiana, Houston, Sixers, OKC, Philly, New Orleans, and then obviously LA. And you can't go back to LA. So yeah, like I said, if you want one of the jobs that are available, I think New Orleans is the best one for you if you don't mind coaching young guys. And obviously, again, you'll have a coach that has more respect, or should have their respect as a coach, has experience, has a proven track record as a winner. And make sure your team is relevant and competitive every year, which I think could matter and should matter in a market like New Orleans, where basketball isn't the biggest thing, but you want to get people into basketball, and that could be the thing that works. And again, I don't know how it will work with younger guys who've never really been with a young team, at least recently. So that'll be an interesting dynamic if he doesn't mind that, or maybe he just takes a year off. I don't know. We'll see kind of how it plays out. But like I said, if he wants a job, I think New Orleans is the best for him. At least, again, given the options. Personally, in terms of getting a team that could get back to contending level sooner rather than later. Because again, the other places, like I said, because I don't think he's the guy for Embiid and Simmons, and I don't know if he wants to coach Harden and Westbrook, because that's a bit much. Personally. Like I said, if he wants one of the jobs available, I think New Orleans is the one to take. But again, we'll see what he wants. And then Clippers-wise, again, unless they're going to promote Ty Lue or Sam Cassell, I don't know where they're going to go to get their coach. Because again, you're not hiring Nate McMillan or Alvin Gentry or I don't know who else is Fizdale or Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy. I don't think any of those guys are worth firing Doc over. But like I said, Ty Lue, yes, he has a championship pedigree, and he's going to have the respect of the players. Sam Cassell's obviously been a guy that has been talked about for jobs recently, and I think this could be his break if, like I said, they decide to give it to him. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. But again, Doc getting fired, not surprising to me. Shouldn't have been surprising to any of you guys. Something else all coming eventually, and now it's here. So we'll see where the Clippers go from here. So after this next break, we'll come back here, do one more basketball topic, and it'll be on Anthony Davis. Obviously, like we said, the finals are getting ready to start on Wednesday, and if he wins this championship, where does that put him in the pantheon of players in the league currently? Because I have an idea. But also, where does it put him among the pantheon of power forwards all the time? Like I said, there was a debate, I guess it was during the conference finals about Is he above Dirk? Is he above KG? Is he above Tim Duncan? Guys like that. And I'm like, Again, well, one guy is clearly not anywhere near his category. Not even close. You have to win a lot more championships to get near that. But some of the other names, I'm like, you know what? One championship might put him in that conversation. So we'll talk about that right after the break. So stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Podcast now. So when you think about Anthony Davis, obviously, we'll get to how you view him post-championship in a second, assuming he wins, which for the sake of the segment, we will. But when you think about Anthony Davis, where do you put him in the NBA, like, in of the best, like, active players currently? Like, personally, where do you guys put him? Like, is he top 5? Is he top 10? Is he top 3? I don't know. And again, this is assuming everyone healthy, so that's including Steph, including Clay, including KD, Kyrie, guys like that. Like, where do you put Anthony Davis? Because I personally think, in the case of me, that he's top 5 without a championship. And like I said, on this Laker team, some night, he's the best player on the Lakers, and that includes LeBron James. So, if in many cases, I mean, again, obviously people will talk about LeBron's MVP case, but some of the argument against that was the fact that Anthony Davis led the team in so many statistical categories. It was like, how could you argue he's the most valuable player when he might not even be the best player on his own team? And again, obviously, LeBron means more to the Lakers, in my opinion. Actually, I don't want to say that because Anthony Davis does mean a lot to the Lakers. If they didn't have Anthony Davis, they don't get to the finals. I don't think. Again, you could argue that, but again, him being the matchup nightmare that he is and being able to do so many different things on the offensive and defensive end makes things easier for LeBron, especially at this stage in his career. Like I said, this, and that's the other thing, is that, like, people have already discussed, is this the best teammate he's ever had? And again, obviously, at this point in time, in my opinion, it's D Wade, obviously because of what he's accomplished and the things he's done and different things like that. But again, obviously, Kyrie's up there as well. But in terms of just pure talent, Anthony Davis is probably the best teammate he's had. In my opinion, at least. Again, you are welcome to argue that. But in my opinion, I think just on a talent perspective, and again, obviously it's aided by the fact that he's 6'10", can shoot. Like, he's everything Chris Bosh was, but, like, better. No offense to Chris Bosh. Like, I didn't mean that to disrespect him. But he's like what Chris Bosh was for the Heat, except, like, the advanced, like the updated version. It's like, obviously, like, you know, like, you get, like, like, say you like iPhone. You get, like, the iOS updates. Like, every update adds a little bit more, like, it's a little bit nicer looking, it's a little bit more smoother. Like, it works a little bit more smoothly. And like I said, it has different features and different things that makes it a little bit better. So like I said, and it happens as you continue to update. And like I said, like, Chris Bosh is, like, the 1.0, while Anthony Davis is, like, 2, maybe 3.0, comparatively speaking. Like, again, he's better scorer, better defender, better rebounder. Shooter, I can't. Like I said, Anthony Davis's 3-point shot has been shaky throughout the course of his career. I think for his career, he's only a He's only at 31% 3-point shooter, and this is the best year, or second best year, take it back, third best year he's had shooting the ball. But early in his career, he wasn't really shooting that well. Though, again, he didn't really start shooting threes until about 2015, 2016, where he started averaging at least 1.8 attempts. Before then, it was like 0.1 and 0.2. So this is the most attempted shot in the year. He's done in the regular season in 3.5, but he averaged 33% on those. And then in the playoffs, obviously doing a little bit better. Shooting 36%, almost 37% on 2.7 attempts. And in the playoffs, he's averaging almost 29 points, 9 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 1.2 steals, 1.2 blocks. Obviously, some of that's been aided by the fact that he has JaVale and Dwight out there helping him. But shooting 57% from the field, like I said, 36% from 3, and 80% from the free throw line. So again, obviously, he improved on a shot from the regular season to the postseason. Again, that might be the bubble, maybe the no fans, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's just like, you could argue he's the best teammate LeBron's ever had at this moment, and they haven't even won a championship together yet. This is their first year together. Like, they don't have the chemistry or the friendship or the relationship that like him and D Wade had even pre going to Miami, or the relationship him and Kyrie developed until obviously it eroded and things like that. But like I said, in the league, I think there's a legitimate case you could argue you could make that he's a top 5 player. Like I said, because in my opinion, the top 3 in any order, depending on the season. It's probably LeBron, and if I were going to go in order, LeBron, KD, Steph. But like I said, I could put KD above LeBron just because again LeBron's a little bit older. And obviously Steph had the good years, but again, KD's body of work over the course of his entire career, obviously not just over the course of the last 5 seasons, is better than Steph. No offense to Steph, greatest shooter of all time. I go down as one of, not the best point guard of all time. But again, I just think KD's been, or was the second best player, in the league for like 8 straight years, you would argue. Obviously, again, Steph had some of the, so I don't want to say 8 straight, but probably about 4 or 5 straight. He had a bunch, I think he had 3 second place MVP votes, of course, of his career, and from 2010, 2011 to 20, up until I guess the 2015, 2016 season, he was clearly the second best player. And then once he joined the Warriors, he went back to being the second best player in the league, or at worst third in the Steph's year, depending on where you rank LeBron. Because obviously that 2015-2016 season from Steph was crazy. But again, that's not the point. The point is that those have been, over the last 10 years, those are probably the 3 best players. And obviously you have Kawhi in there, you have Anthony Davis, you have Giannis now with back-to-back MVPs and Defensive Player of the Year, things like that. So Anthony Davis doesn't have those. He doesn't have those personal accolades that Giannis has. He doesn't have the championships that Kawhi has. But if he gets one, now I think that solidifies him as a top 5 player. And I think you can honestly, especially if he wins a Finals MVP, or even if he doesn't. Again, if he just plays well in the Finals, he doesn't completely no-show. Based on Giannis' lack of success in the playoffs and the fact that his deficiencies kind of come out and are exploited and highlighted in the playoffs, while Anthony Davis does not have that same issue because he can shoot the ball a little bit. I think even though Giannis will be the back-to-back MVP, I think you could legitimately put him in that number 5. As, again, with Steph, KD, LeBron, Kawhi. You could slide him in at number 5, and I think that there's a legitimate argument to be made there. And again, obviously it's going to be hard because Giannis won back-to-back MVPs, blah, 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 but, just because he won back-to-back, I'm not sure he's the best player in the world. He's been the best player in the league the last 2 years, point-blank period, but, same thing with Steph. When Steph won back-to-back, I don't think he was the best player in the world. Maybe again that second season, but even this year, I don't think Giannis was the best player in the world. He was just the MVP, which again, 2 different things in my own personal belief. Like I said, he wins that Finals, he gets that ring, and especially if he wins Finals MVP, which I think may need to happen if the Lakers do win. It'll be probably because of Anthony Davis. Because again, I don't think LeBron's going to go out there have a 30, average 30 points in the series, or have a triple double or anything like that. I expect Anthony Davis to be a leading scorer. If they win, obviously if they lose, then we'll see what happens. But if they win, I expect him to be the leading scorer. He's probably going to average about 10 rebounds a game, somewhere around 9-10 rebounds, a couple blocks, maybe a steal, shoot obviously 50% from the field, maybe even 35-40% from 3, things like that. Shoot well from the free throw line. So that's what I kind of expect from him. And like I said, if he gets the Finals MVP, like I said, he has that those two things that Giannis hasn't touched yet, and still will only be, 27? Yeah, he's 27 years old, just turned 27 in March. So he's still relatively young. Obviously, Giannis is, I think 25 now? So again, he got a couple years on him to catch up. But, again, at 27 years old, I think it's legitimate. And he turned 26 in December. So again, he's not that much older than Giannis is. I think that happens. He has a legitimate case to be a top 5 player in the league. Like, solidified stamp, like, you can't take him out. Again, barring some sort of catastrophic season next year. Like, he would be solidified coming to the season, kind of like Kawhi was. Once he won the championship, he was like, oh, is he the best player in the world? Like, no, probably not. But, again, he's coming off the best season, so you can make these kind of hyperbolic arguments about him and, like, how great he is. Because then, obviously, everyone with injury last year thought LeBron was going to fall off, and then, like, obviously KD wasn't going to play, and, like, Steph ended up getting hurt. So, like, it was like, oh, maybe Kawhi is the best player. Even though, like, the Raptors probably don't win if the Warriors are healthy. That's neither here nor is it there. But yeah, like I said, thank you. They said those things about Kawhi, and I'm like, yeah, let's pump the brakes a little bit. But, like I said, then Anthony Davis has been a guy that I've been a fan of for a while. I remember tweeting back in 2014 that he was a couple years away from his first MVP, which, I mean, he could have had but the Pelicans weren't that good, and obviously didn't have the postseason success and different things like that to warrant it. Clearly you're not going to give an MVP, generally speaking, to a team that finishes in the bottom half of the conference, and especially not in the West. I mean, even in the West, again, outside of, and if you're going to, you're going to need to do Russell Westbrook where you break some sort of history. Well, Anthony Davis had a great season, but he hasn't broken any sort of history, obviously. And like I said, with the triple doubles or whatever, 50, 40, 90, whatever you want to, like, that's what he needed to do to win while with the Pelicans. Now, I do think if he gets that championship and gets that off his back, and LeBron kind of gives him the full keys and lets him be the guy, I think that he could win MVP next year, based off what we've seen. But again, we'll have to see what happens with the season. And again, obviously this year there's a bubble in the playoffs, no fans. See how it kind of affects people going back to fans being in the stands and things like that next season, and things like that, kind of how teams transition and get more used to doing things like that. But, like I said, I think if he gets that championship this year and is the Finals MVP, he has a legitimate case and will have a very strong case, and I think will stamp himself as a top 5 player in the league, point blank period, no argument. But now it goes to the all-time argument. Like I said, Tim Duncan, he's in a league of his own. Like that, he got to win a couple more championships, win some more awards to get anywhere near Tim Duncan. Because Tim Duncan, for his career, obviously he is in the Hall of Fame. 15-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA, 5-time NBA champ, 15-time All-Defensive Team, earned Rookie of the Year, was an All-Star MVP, 3-time Finals MVP, 2-time regular season MVP, and Rookie of the Year. Did he never win Defensive Player? Is that factual? Wow, he never won Defensive Player of the Year. That's crazy. And yet somehow he made All-Defensive Team. He made second team All-Defensive in 97-98. Which was his rookie year? Yep. And it was like first team for forever, really. Well, for like 5 straight years. Or 4 straight years. And then like he had a couple second teams sprinkled in there. But he had a lot of first teams. But no MVP. So that's interesting. I mean, no Defensive Player of the Year, excuse me. He won 2 MVPs. And that's it. So he's in the league all on his own. The 80 got a long way to catch up to him. When you look at Kevin Garnett, obviously he does have the 1 MVP, which helps his case. But he was a 15-time All-Star, 4-time rebounding champ, won the ring, 9-time All-NBA, 12-time All-Defensive Team, Rookie of the Year, All-Star Game MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and then won MVP. So like I said, not a bad career. Obviously, he's in the Hall of Famer. Clearly one of the best power forwards ever. And then Dirk, he was obviously won the 1 championship, won 1 MVP, though he got swept that year in the playoffs, so that kind of hurt. Was a 12-time All-NBA, was the Finals MVP, was obviously the NBA champion, was a 14-time All-Star. Now, when you go with Anthony Davis' accolades, already at 27, he is a 7-time All-Star. Basically, been an All-Star every year, but his rookie year. So 7-time All-Star, 3-time block champ, 4-time All-NBA, 4-time All-Defense, an All-Rookie team member, and an All-Star, and an All-Star Game MVP. So I said you added championship and a Finals MVP to that. Now, again, obviously he doesn't have the All-Stars and the All-NBAs and All-Defensive teams, things like that, like KG or Dirk has yet. But again, if he plays another 8 to 10 years, you're going to get at least up to close to 15 you're going to get close to 15 All-Stars. He's going to get close to 10, 11 All-NBA teams. You would think. He's going to get close to at least probably 7 or 8 all-defensive teams. You would think, especially during his prime. Obviously, once the defense wanes off, again, a lot of it's a reputation thing. But again, as he comes out of his prime, maybe the all-defensive teams won't be there. Those will probably be an all-NBA caliber talent, and obviously the All-Stars will always be there. We could probably lead the league in blocks again another time. May eventually lead the league in reboundings, potentially. You never know. And then maybe, like I said, if he wins an MVP, now he's definitely in there. So, like I said, Tim Duncan, no, not even close. But, like I said, an MVP, the championship and an MVP, and a Finals MVP, at this point in his career, because both KG and Dirk got theirs a little bit later in their career, though they never played with somebody like LeBron. Though, I mean, hey, Steve Nash did win 2 MVPs with the Mavs, I believe, right? Both his MVP seasons were with the Mavs, I thought. Yeah, because when did Steve Nash win MVP? He won MVP in 2004, 2005, 2006, the back-to-back. Oh, no, take the back, those are both with Phoenix. So never mind. Forget everything I said. Again, Steve Nash that's funny, because he was only a 2-time All-Star with the Mavs. Still solid, though, but only 2-time All-Star, but he didn't average double digits until his 5th year in the league. So he really wasn't playing, again, real starter mans until his 5th year in the league either. So, I guess that kind of coincides and would make a lot of sense. Again, obviously, he raised his game post age 30 once he got with D'Antoni. He didn't have, all his double-digit assist years are with D'Antoni. His best scoring seasons are with D'Antoni. And obviously his MVPs are with D'Antoni's 50, 40, 90 years are with D'Antoni as well, I believe. No, scratch that. No, okay, no. Yeah, no, all his 50, 40, 90 years are with D'Antoni as well. So, or I guess his one. Yeah, he only had one, excuse me. 50, 40, 90. No, wait. 2. Yeah, 2. Like I said, both of those came with the Suns, I believe. Again, I'm trying to look through Basketball Reference and double check. But, yeah, I think he had 2. 50, 40, 90, and they both came with the Suns. So, like I said, none of those guys played with a talent as good as LeBron did, even though he got 35-year-old LeBron. This isn't 27, 28, 29-year-old LeBron. It's a little bit older. But still, obviously, LeBron James is still one of the best players in the league, if not the best. So, yeah, but I'm just saying, if he gets the finals now, and then gets the ring now at 27, or it took those guys until, Dirk was... Let me see how old Dirk was when he won his. Obviously, Tim Duncan doesn't count because he won as a rookie. But Dirk was 32 when he won his, and Kevin Garnett was what they won in 07, 08. So he was 31. So he got a 4 or 5 year head start on them on the finals. And again, him and KG came in the league at the same age. Dirk came in a little bit older because he was not a little bit old. He was 20, while KG and Anthony Davis were both 19. Though obviously Anthony Davis went to the 1 year college. So, I think it's a legitimate case to be made if he wins the finals this year, or not he, but if the Lakers win the finals this year and he wins Finals MVP, he's at least in that conversation. Now, again, he's going to have to get more accolades and do more things, but again, based on what he's done at 27, it's hard to not put him in that class, at least in terms of talent and what they've accomplished. Again, Tim Duncan, that's way far down the line, got to win at least 3, maybe even 4 championships before you even begin to have that conversation. But again, just the one, when KG and Dirk only have the one, they both got it later in their career. And 80 will have one at 27. Like I said, the conversation is there to be had at least. And like I said, if he wins it, I think he's firmly a top 5 player in the league. If he's not already. I think he is already, but if you don't believe that, then I think winning a finals this year and being part of the main reason why the Lakers got to the finals and will probably win it, I think it's hard to debate that he's not a top 5 player in the league. Certified, in my opinion. But hey, to each their own. That's just me. But again, we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe the Heat win and all this, the whole conversation is moot. But again, since I picked the Lakers in 6, I think that we will be having this conversation in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. or we could have this conversation in a week or a half, 2 weeks. Again, I'm not going to say this is going to be the first conversation we have, because the first conversation we have will be that LeBron's the unequivocal GOAT, which again, I'll save that for if the Lakers win a championship and seeing how they win it, obviously, because if LeBron gets hurt or something, then Anthony Davis is carries, then it's a different conversation. But if he's the Finals MVP, then yeah, I think, like I said, I don't want to give my whole debate out, but I think we'll be having that conversation first. Then we'll have the Anthony Davis conversation. So yeah, but after this last break, we will come back here and discuss. Obviously, playoff baseball started on Tuesday. There'll be, I think it's 8 games Wednesday, potentially 8 games Thursday as well, if all the series go 3 games, different things like that. But yeah, so playoff baseball started, so I think I'll just give a quick recap of what happened, what you may have missed, because I don't know if you watched all the games, and kind of who's in trouble, and who, well, yeah, I guess it's rated as who's in trouble, because obviously there's only 1 game, it's a 3-game series, so you don't really have a whole lot of time to get things together. So we'll discuss all that right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And we're back here again from the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, there are 4 games today. The first one, I guess the game that started first was Astros versus the Twins. And this is a game that the Twins definitely let slip away. I did not realize, because I think I picked them to win. Did not realize that they were on a historic losing streak, and they officially passed it now. I think they've now lost 17 straight games dating back to 2004. Was unaware that it was that bad. I knew they had gotten swept by the Yankees and stuff in recent years, things like that. I knew they'd struggled in the playoffs recently, but it was because they were running into the Yankees. It happens. I did not realize it was this bad. If I would have known that, probably wouldn't have picked them. But yeah, so the Minnesota Twins have now lost 17 straight postseason games dating back to 2004. That surpasses the Blackhawks' 16-game skid spanning 1975 to 79 for the longest postseason losing streak in any major American sport. So, shout out to the Twins for setting records. But yeah, they got off to I think they let the bases loaded in the first inning, which is probably, because they got the bases loaded with, they got the bases loaded with 1 out. Then Rosario lined out to first, then Sano grounded out to third. Bregman made a nice play on it, but still, you get bases loaded, 1 out in the first inning. You got to at least come away with a run there somehow, some way. They weren't able to do that. Eventually, got a run in the third. Nelson Cruz, I believe, drove in that run. Yeah, it was on the ball that Reddick played kind of weird. He didn't really run as hard as you thought he could have back to the fence, and then obviously went over his head, and he wasn't able to get the ball in time. But again, so they got a 1-0 lead. Maeda pitched well for them, which is kind of what you would have hoped for. Had 5 strong innings. I think gave up only 2 hits, 3 walks, but 5 strikeouts. Again, he did what he had to do. And then the Astros were able to get a run back in the 7th on a George Springer single. Reddick was able to score, so he kind of made up for it there. And then came the 9th inning, where, like I said, the Twins were just trying to figure out a way to get out of the inning and get themselves up to bat so they could potentially win that game. Then, I think it was Sergio Ramos came in to pitch, gave up a single, He gave up another single, then was able to get Reddick out and Maldonado out. So he had the chance there to get out of the inning unscathed. I think Springer hit a ball up the middle to short. Polanco tried to go to second. The throw was a little bit off base. He kind of rushed it a little bit because it kind of like got up on him quick. It was like a one-hopper. You thought he was going to be able to just just make an accurate throw, get him out, but he wasn't able to do it. The second baseman wasn't able to corral the ball. So then the inning was extended. I'm trying to just remember who the second baseman was. Arias wasn't able to corral the errant throw. And then, like I said, so that extended the inning, which is what you don't want to do, especially on an error. You don't want to send the inning longer than you have to. And then Romo walked in the next batter. No one walked Altuve to walk in a run. So that was bad. I think they said that was the first time in postseason history that's happened. It's at least that late in the game, something like that. I thought that Baseball Reference tweeted that out, which again was wild to me. But again, that's maybe what they put. So I was yeah, I mean, I believe you. But I was like, that can't be right? There's no way that that's true. But I'm gonna go back and find the tweet for you guys because again, like I said, I like to give you accurate stats here when it comes to these things. But yeah, it says Sergio Ramos is the first pitcher in MLB postseason history to walk in the go-ahead run in the ninth inning. Though someone pointed out there have been three in extra innings, including Kenny Rogers' walk-off walk in the 11th. The only time that there's been, this says shrimp. The only time there's been shrimp in the postseason. Don't even know what that means. But yeah, so again, it happened in extra innings, but it's never happened, I guess, in the ninth. So that's unfortunate for those teams. I think it's happened twice in the 11th and once in the 10th that a team has done that. So, like I said, unfortunate for him. But yeah, so then like I said, then after that, who was it that came up next? After Altuve walked, it was Brantley. Brantley singled to center, scored 2 runs, and they were able to get Bregman out. And on a similar play to the one that that Polanco made the errant throw on the first time, and then they were able to get 2 guys on, Sano singled and Polanco singled, and then their pinch hitter ground into a double play. So that was it. So like I said, that's a rough one. That's a game. I mean, I'm not gonna say they should have won because it's not like they were up and blew the lead. I mean, they were up 1-0, but that's not the same. But that's again, you're not supposed to. You shouldn't just give runs away in the 9th inning like that. That wasn't supposed to happen at the very least. But as it did happen, so now and like I said, the Twins just got to get that proverbial monkey off their back. That's kind of where they're at, is that they can't seem to get over that hump. Like I said, they need to win a postseason game. They lost 17 in a row. Like I said, so maybe once they win that, they'll be fine. Then I guess we'll kind of see what happens in Game 2 with the pitching, because obviously Greinke was their best pitcher for the Astros. And, I mean, same thing goes for Maeda. So I guess we'll kind of see what the Game 2 matchup is, who they decide to pitch, things like that. But again, that's a game that you would have hoped to have won. But now you gotta hope for the best here. And hope your starting pitching, whether it's Barrios or somebody else, can keep your season alive. Like I said, I guess from the Astros perspective, it's hey, look, now we have 2 games to win 1. We haven't been that good this season, and maybe we didn't deserve to make it to the playoffs. But hey, we're here now. And like I said, so we'll see who they decide to go with for Game 2 as well. But I mean, they got the 1 win, so they're on the right path. So in the second game was White Sox, A's, and again, I got the pitcher wrong because they went with Luzardo, the A's did, as opposed to Manaea. I just want to make sure I pronounce that right. Yeah, instead of Manaea, I think. But yeah, as a starter for Game 1. But still, they went with the left-handed pitcher. And as we said before, they were the best hitting team against left-handed starting pitching this season. The ESPN was showing the graphics during the game. They were 14-0, obviously. I think they averaged 7 runs a game. They were just amazing. And that continued today. They got home runs from 3 different guys. Got one from They got one from Adam Engel to start off the scoring in the bottom of the second. Then they got another one from Jose Abreu, and both of them were on pitches that were up in the zone and hard. Like, again, both on 95 plus mile per hour fastballs, but they were left up in the zone. White Sox are a very good hitting team, especially a good hitting team for power. And so they got, like I said, they got 2 runs there. And then I think Yasmani Grandal hit one as well later in the game. He hit one in the top of the 8th off of Soria. So he's a right-handed pitcher, but still. That's the thing, is that like their lineup is built like that, where they have guys that can get on base, like Tim Anderson. He was 3 for 4. Again, you got guys like Abreu who went 2 for 4 but hit a home run. Engel went 2 for 4 and a home run. And that's the thing, like, all right, they only had like 9 hits, and of the 9 hits, 7 of them came from 3 guys. But like I said, when 2 of those guys hit home runs, that's what matters. And like I said, as we talked about, the Athletics, don't have a lot of great hitters. Like, they're kind of guys that if the pitcher is gonna be a little bit off and like walk guys, they can manufacture runs that way. But due to the fact that Lucas Giolito was on today, specifically, like, he probably pitched him a little bit too long. He probably didn't need to go back out there for the 8th. I think because that's when he gave up his only run of the game, was in the 8th. Up until then, he was dominating. But then he walked the guy, then he singled, and then the guy was able to get to third, and then a new pitcher came in, and they were able to score a run there. But then Marshall and Bummer combined to get out of the inning, and then Colomé came in and shut them down 1-3 in the 9th. But Giolito showed what he is, and that is an ace, a number 1 starter. He was dominant in the game. 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 8 walks. Not 8 walks. That would have been bad. 1 walk, 8 Ks on 100 pitches. So again, he was great. And like I said, showed what he could be, and what he has been over the past couple years, which is a very good, quality, number 1 caliber pitcher in a rotation. Again, he started his career a little shaky, but over the last couple seasons, he's been very good. And this is kind of what you hope for in his first postseason with the White Sox. At least I don't know if he pitched at any point in the postseason with the Nationals, but with the White Sox, this was his big time moment to show you, like, yes, this is why I'm the guy. This is why I'm the ace. And he backed it up. And now again, they turn to Dallas Keuchel in Game 2, who has is in the most elite postseason pitcher, but he's a guy that has experience, has been there before, and again, also they got the 1 game cushion, so that helps you in case you have to go to a Game 3, whoever you decide to pitch for that Game 3. But also, now, like I said, you had got some of the first game jitters out, because a lot of these guys, their first postseason, even for older guys like Abreu, Anderson, like, these guys aren't like young guys. Like, they're not like Moncada, they're not Robert, they're not Jimenez, who didn't have to play today because he was a little bit banged up. But he was able or eligible to pinch hit if they need him today. So we'll see if he plays on Wednesday or Thursday. But again, they kind of show what they are. They're a power hitting team, hit 3 home runs, and they have very solid pitching and a good bullpen. So, like I said, this is why I picked them over the A's. This is why I think they could be a sneaky World Series team if they get hot and their starting pitching is good enough over the course of the playoffs. Because obviously, again, they have guys that hit for power, they have guys that hit for average, they have a little bit of everything. There's not really very many, if any, really easy outs in their lineup. If everybody's like, if once Jimenez is back in there, like with no Encarnacion, with no more Mazara in there, even Madrigal hits, like, again, he's a 9 hitter that hit like almost 300 on the year. He hit 340 on the year. Yeah, I've seen 30 in 29 games, but again, he's a very good average hitter, very good with 2 strikes. So, like, again, he's not your average 9 hitter. So, like I said, their lineup is very tough 1 through 9, generally speaking. So, like I said, they're not going to be easy out for anybody. So we'll see if the A's can bounce back in Game 2. But like I said, I think the White Sox, if they can get a good performance out of Keuchel, that might be enough to put them over the edge, even though they won't be facing a left-handed pitcher tomorrow. I would imagine. Like, there's no way that he's pitching another left-handed pitcher in this series. As a starter. Again, bullpen, different story, but as a starter, there's no reason to. So there's no reason to do it in Game 1, in my opinion, anyway, but the A's win what they thought could work. Backfired is what it is. Then the third game, because the last game there's not really a whole lot to talk about. The third game was Rays Blue Jays, and Blake Snell did his thing that he continues to do against the Rays. against the Blue Jays. He took a no-hitter into the 6th. Also, I think Giolito took a perfect game into the 7th. If I'm either 6th or 7th in his game. But yeah, he was great. Their bullpen was great. They only gave up 1 run in the game on a sac fly. But Blake Snell, unless they put together a good performance, and I kind of figured he would. He's an experienced guy. 5 2/3, 1 hit, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. Castillo came in, didn't give up a run. Nick Anderson gave up 1 run on 2 hits in 1 1/3, and then Fairbanks came in and shut them down in the 9th. 1-2-3 inning, 2 strikeouts, excuse me. So like I said, it's kind of what I thought. The Blue Jays, it's a good story. Not 1-2-3, because he had 2 strikeouts, but the second strikeout, not 1-2-3. There was a strikeout swinging, then a Gurriel double, then Hernandez struck out looking, but Gurriel was able to get to third on a wild pitch during that at bat, and then Panic lined out. So I said not 1-2-3, but still never really in too much danger. So there's that. But yeah, it's just another thing that I think the Blue Jays, while it's a good story, especially when you play a team like the Rays, where that's in your own division, like you have experience with them, it's not new to them, like you kind of know who they are and what to expect. Like that's a tough matchup for the Blue Jays in their first postseason for a lot of these guys. And like I said, they only got 5 hits throughout the game. Gurriel got 2, Biggio got 1, Kirk got 1, and pinch hitter Rowdy Tellez got 1, and obviously Bo Bichette got the sac fly. And that's kind of what you expected. And then from the Rays' perspective, like again, no one really, they only got 4 hits on their own, but Margot had a 2-run homer, and like I said, that's generally going to be enough if guys hit home runs. And I think the other one they scored on a wild pitch after a walk. So like I said, neither team are great offensively, but I think the Rays have enough pitching to where they can manufacture some runs. They should be able to get this done, but we'll see what happens again in Game 2, see how the Blue Jays bounce back. I wouldn't want for them to go down lightly, but again, we'll see what happens. And then the last game of the night was Yankees-Indians, and my apologies for saying Terry Francona was pitching. I forgot he had to step away due to some was managing. He had to step away due to some health reasons, but regardless, it didn't matter if he was out there or who was going to be out there. If Bieber didn't have his good stuff today. It is what it is. Like, he left the Yankees jumped on the first pitch fastball many times, and they just were able to get on him early and often, and he wasn't there, never looked that comfortable, and it's unfortunate because in a short series like this is probably going to be the only time he pitches, and they lost the Bieber game. Like I said, for the Yankees when I talked about the series, like if they lose the Cole game, like what happens? The same thing with the Indians. If you lose the Bieber game, like all right, now you're counting on Carlos Carrasco against potentially, again, don't know who that Game 2 star is going to be, but Carlos Carrasco against Tanaka, maybe, or Plesac, or like I said, I don't know who they're going to go with for Game 2. But again, Bieber, that's your ace, that's your number 1. He's been the best pitcher in the league. That's supposed to be the game you win, and obviously you try to win one of the next 2. This is supposed to be the game you win, and he got lit up, got hit around quite a bit. I mean, obviously, lit up is not necessarily the 100% correct term, but he definitely did not have a good out. No, I take that back. He got lit up. 4 2/3, 9 hits, 7 runs, all earned, 2 walks, that's 7 strikeouts, but he gave up 2 home runs. And again, it didn't really matter. The Yankees hit whoever was out there. They scored 12 runs. There's 12-3, had 15 hits in total. LeMahieu was good, had 2 hits. Judge only had the 1 hit, but it was a home run and kind of got the offense going early. The second batter of the game, 4 pitches in, the Indians were down 2-0. And they were never really able to recover. Because even when they scored runs back-to-back in third and the fourth, like the Yankees were still 5-2. At that point, they were able to keep the scoring going from there. Voit had 2 hits. Gleyber Torres looked good. I imagine he won't be hitting 7th in the lineup again next game, I would think. You never know. But I would think if I move him up, because I don't know why Hicks is batting 3rd. Other than, again, he walked twice, so that's nice. But again, hitting-wise, like Gleyber Torres is clearly a better hitter than he is. So that makes sense to me. But I guess when it's a right-handed pitcher, you want to break up kind of some of the right-handed bats in the lineup. But again, like in terms of your best hitters, Torres should be higher. So he had 4 hits. Gardner had 3 hits, 3 RBIs. Urshela got a hit, Stanton got a hit. So like I said, and then obviously they didn't bat Gary Sanchez because the other catcher works better with Cole, and it worked out for them because Cole 7 innings, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 13 Ks. You have the 1 home run to I think Josh Naylor. It was a no doubt or two. That one was bad. But again, at the end of the day, it didn't matter because the offense was dominant, and that's kind of what I was afraid of for the Indians. Is that like I don't think they have the offense to keep up with the Yankees' offense. If Bieber was going to do this, like I said, if they do this to Bieber, I don't know which guy you hope for. And again, they still had a lot of strikeouts as a team. Like they struck out 10 times as a team. So they're still big swingers, they're still free swingers. So it's not like it's impossible to get past that lineup. But again, if the Yankees are all going to hit very well, it's going to be tough to beat them. Like I said, the lineup is again tough outside of the catcher. Generally speaking, their lineup, like you got LeMahieu, Judge, Voit, Stan if he's hitting well, Urshela, Gleyber, Torres. Like there's not many easy outs in their lineup either. Kind of just like the White Sox. Like they had a lineup full of guys that can all hit and hit for power. It's not like these guys are outside of like LeMahieu. He doesn't not a big power hitter, but Judge is a big power hitter. Voigt's a big power hitter. Stan's a big power hitter. Obviously, Gleyber, Torres can hit for power. Urshela's not the biggest power hitter, but he's not nothing. So that's 6 home runs on the year and 30 RBI. So again, not nothing. He's still again a solid hitter. Plus he hit about 300 this year to go along with his 300 average last year. And last year he had 21 home runs. So again, he can hit for a little bit of power. Obviously, just less games this year. But yeah, so it's gonna be tough for the Indians. See who they go with for Game 2. But this is kind of what you feel when you face the Yankees team. Yes, they're going with Carrasco. So, see what happens there, at least according to ESPN. That's who they're going with. So, see what happens there. But yeah, the Yankees, I think, if they're on, I think they're probably the team to beat in the AL. Though, again, we'll see what happens if they got to face the Rays in Game 2 because the Rays have had their number all season. But again, regular season doesn't matter in the postseason. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, so as I said, 4 fun games to start, and obviously we got 8 games over the next 2 days in total, like potentially like 8 games each day, all over Wednesday and Thursday. So it'll be interesting to kind of look into that, see what series ends, see who can, how the matches are going to look like after this weekend, because obviously next week is when the next round would start. Next Monday, I believe, is when the DSs would start. The ALDS first, and then NLDS on Tuesday. So, we'll see how that plays out. But should be fun nonetheless. That'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys as always for listening to me talk about sports. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top when we drop the latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well give us a 5-star rating, write us a review. Very appreciated, very helpful. I'll see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media. So you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. You can give me your predictions for the NBA Finals. Talk about who you think the best team in the NFL is. Like I said, I think it's the Chiefs. But again, I'm more than happy to discuss that with you. Give what you kind of think. Who's going to win these playoff games over the next few days in the MLB. Like I said, where do you think Doc's going to go, or who do you think the next Clippers coach is going to be? All different things, like whatever you guys want to talk about. Also, before I get out of here, shout out to Tampa Bay Lightning. Won the Stanley Cup in 6 games. I forget. I think they won that. I think the last game was what? It was 2-0. Yeah, 2-0. 2-0 on Monday. So like I said, shout out to them. Got the Stanley Cup, brought that home. I mean, I wouldn't. Obviously, tradition drunk out of it with the Rona running wild. I wouldn't be as willing to do that. But hey, tradition, they don't care about that. They were in a bubble for how many ever days. You're gonna do what you're gonna do. So that should be fun. Shout out to Steven Stamkos. Gosh, I know he's been there for a while. Obviously, he's not the only guy. They have a few older guys on their team, but obviously Stamkos had the cool moment where he was able to play for just like basically like one shift and scored a goal. So that's pretty fun. That's a nice little story for him. Like I said, at least he got to be a part of it. Obviously, he's been with that team for a while, been their best player. You want to have him be a bigger part of the postseason run, but at the end of the day, you want to win. So they won, and he was still part of the team for leading up until the shutdown. So it's not like he didn't help them at all. It's not like he missed the whole season, but then they would have hoped to be a little bit more part of the postseason run. But again, did score a goal in the finals. in the Stanley Cup final. So, again, that helps too. So, again, shout out to Tampa Bay. Didn't want to forget about them. But, yeah. So, before I get out here, like I always do, shout out the essential workers, first responders, EMTs, doctors, nurses, post office workers, firefighters, and delivery drivers, all those guys that are working, grocery store workers, retail workers. Everybody's been working tirelessly through this pandemic. And like I said, making sure everybody else around can stay safe, even if not everybody cares as much as they should about the pandemic and the virus, especially at this point. Most people are kind of just over it because it's been going on for so long. Kind of get fatigued with it, which you shouldn't. Again, it's still alive and kicking. But like I said, at the same time, people are kind of over it. So, like I said, you guys have had to work through this and maybe not have been compensated properly or worked in the best conditions. But at the end of the day, if no one else appreciates the work you guys have done, I do. And also, again, that goes for delivery drivers, Amazon, FedEx, UPS, all those delivery services as well. And also, if you're going to go to, like I said, if you're going to still be going out to bars and restaurants and different things like that, just make sure you tip your waiters, waitresses, bartenders, delivery drivers, if you're ordering food, stuff like that. Like I said, they'd be appreciated. They're doing their best to make sure you get a nice and safe dining experience. As that I imagine, least you could do, if you can. Like I said, don't know what everyone's financial situations are during this time. So I understand if money's a little tight for certain people. But if you can, then again, I think a nice tip would go a long way for people that obviously have been hit hard, just like we've all been hit hard by the pandemic. Also, just wear your mask. It's not that simple. I mean, it's not that hard. It is very simple. Like I said, just wear your mask, and hopefully we'll be out of this sooner rather than later. Don't really know when that's going to be, but eventually it'll be gone, right? Like you think so? Like you would think at some point it'll be gone. But hey, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that'll do it for me here today. I've been Chris Blades, and that has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.